town of Acton, in response to the COVID-19 coronavirus, is currently following the guidance from the Acton Board of Health, Massachusetts Department of Public Health, and the CDC regarding the virus and steps communities can take to prevent the spread. The town hall is closed to the public. This meeting will be broadcast live, local access cable on the ActonTV channel or streaming online at the ActonTV YouTube live channel, and audio will be broadcast live on the radio on WAEM 94.9. To participate remotely from a computer, please click on the link below to join the meeting. That's webinar://zoom.us//j/5039-18785, or from a telephone dial 646-876-9923 and enter webinar ID 503-918-785. Telephone users may dial *9 to request to speak after joining the meeting. Computer and app users may use the raise hand feature to request to speak. So to begin, are there any citizens' concerns? I'd just like to say at the outset that those of you in citizens' concerns, we will be having public discussion and comment on item 9, discuss and vote on appointments to Diversity, Equity, Inclusivity Commission, including the communications that we received this weekend from Fran Arsalan. So, David, are there any citizen concerns?
There's one hand up, John.
Sure, thank you. Please.
Go ahead, please call in user.
This is Tara from West Acton. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes. So I think I heard that you will allow people to speak, the public to speak during the DEIC portion of the meeting. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Great. Thank you. And I have a concern, a different concern. It's my understanding that a number of mature public shade trees were removed from Charter Road as part of a school road widening project, and hoping to find out. I watched these agendas pretty closely, and I didn't see any tree hearing for those trees. So if we're going to be talking about a replacement for the trees because they're gone, I urge the use of a cross-sectional method so that we don't get 10 new skinny little trees that, you know.
Acton town government.
What's that? Hello?
No.
You're still on.
Okay, so I urge a cross-sectional method of replacement because the old pro-developer way of just measuring the diameter and putting up a few scraggly trees, I don't think cuts it in this day and age, especially where we declared a climate emergency, et cetera. So I urge looking into this and urging the schools to engage in a serious replacement program for those trees. Thank you.
Thank you. Dean?
Yeah, just a comment. I haven't been down there, but most of the Charter Road section that is in the school campus is not actually a public road anymore. There's only there's the residential portion of Charter Road between Hayward Road and Arlington Street. And then there's a very short section going in from Hayward Road towards the auditorium, which is maybe less than 100 yards. And the rest of the road, the rest of the road was discontinued. Now, that being said, I agree that that's certainly an area that should deserve a lot of trees, and I hope that they will be replaced. But I don't believe that any of the trees that were removed at the other section of Charter Road towards the junior high actually qualifies as a public road or public shade trees under Mass General Law, Chapter 87.
Just as a follow-up question,
Sure.
Chairman?
Yes, please.
So I don't remember, I remember the vote to convey the properties to the schools. And it's my understanding that that vote did not include a notification that the public shade trees would then not be protected. And so that would be a reduction of rights, at least in terms of the protection of the trees and the right to a public shade tree hearing. So I would hope that the schools would not do this again and to engage in a tree hearing for the sole purposes of community building and ensuring that we do the right thing. So anyway, thank you very much, John.
Dean, did you have any? Dean?
Yeah, the discontinuance of Charter Road as a public road in that section actually occurred back in the early 1970s. The most recent conversion of land from the Acton Public Schools to the ABRHS district really didn't have anything to do with changing the status of the road itself. Again, I agree. I think those trees should be replaced inch by inch. It's just that, it's the wrong section of the law that does not apply.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so on to the chair's update. Our meeting scheduled for Monday, September 28th will be canceled because it coincides with Yom Kippur, the Jewish Day of Atonement. We have two meetings scheduled in October on Monday the 5th and Monday the 19th. I am concerned that we have a lot of work to do and our agendas are becoming pretty lengthy. So in connection with John and Dean, we may be looking to schedule a third meeting in October just to keep ahead. We're going to have a long meeting tonight, and I just don't think meetings that stretch 2.5 hours plus, or we make our best judgments at that point. For the audience, the Board of Selectmen name change is an amendment to the town charter, and it involves two votes. We had our first vote at special town meeting last week that required a 2/3 vote of town meeting. There will be a second vote at the town election on March 30, 2021, which requires a simple majority. So should it pass, then we will our name will officially then be changed to the select board. And then finally, we will have.
So I'm still a select man, right?
You are what you want to call yourself. Yes. You're very good. You're very good. I'm Joan Gardner. We'll have an executive session, hopefully a short executive session immediately following the regular session tonight. So, John, for your manager's update, please.
Thank you. Yes, I just have a few items just to bring to the public's attention. First, the fire station project in North Acton. You will hopefully see the existing structure demolition beginning in a few days or a week, about a week or so. We're just finalizing some permitting for that. And I wanted to give people some save the dates for public forums that we're going to have this fall. We've been trying to wait for maybe a time that we could do these in person, but I think we're going to just move ahead and schedule them virtually to keep the projects moving forward. So the first one is the Acton Center Design Project. We've been working on re-envisioning the design for the center right out here behind town or in front of Town Hall. And we have a 25% design forum that we're scheduling, and the date that we're plugging in is October 7th at 7 p.m. With more details to be provided. A second item is that the Board of Selectmen earlier this calendar year asked the planning board to take a look at the existing zoning bylaws as it relates to drive-up windows. And so a process has begun, and there's a public forum to discuss and get input on that process. And that is scheduled for October 15th. I think it'll be 7, but the details will be more specific as we get closer. Just wanted to get it on people's radar. And we're also looking at a second date for December 10th, both at 7 p.m. Also, just a reminder, the dog park discussion that the board decided to have later this year will take place on October 19th. And we have a discussion that we're planning regarding the Asa Parlin House behind Town Hall. We've worked with using CPA funds and state earmark to do a stabilization and selective demolition of the Asa Parlin House. And the next step is to work on a vision for how to reuse that building. We've had some ideas, but we want to get a public forum together to put those ideas and get some support for 1 or 2 concepts to take to the next phase and work with the Community Preservation Committee to see if they'll consider further funding next year. So that will probably be in the second week of October. I just wanted to get that on people's radar. Another item is that there is a community group offering English language learning, and they are starting up classes again in October. You need to register by the end of this month. If you're interested, you need to call 978-393-1738. And those are my updates. I have several other that will be embedded into tonight's agenda. So thank you.
Thank you, John. So member minutes, Jim?
I don't have anything this week. John will be talking about the report from the Green Advisory Board.
John?
Yeah, I'd like to thank John Mangiaretti, Eva, and Gail Austin and Steve Barrett for their work during pre-voting and election day. I looked up at one point and Gail was on her back trying to get ballots out of the machine, and I thought she had fallen. And everybody worked so hard to make that all work, and it worked very, very well. So thank you to all who participated.
Okay. David?
And nothing from me this week, John.
Sure. Dean?
No, I had my say about Charter Road. That's good enough. Thank you.
Okay. Okay. So it is now 7:13. This will be for the dog hearing, and I will read the legal notice, Town of Acton notice of hearing. The Acton Board of Selectmen will hold a public hearing on September 14, 2020 at 7:10 p.m. remotely by video conference, and call in for an order to show cause to determine a dangerous dog housed at 39 Oneida Road, Acton, Mass. 01720. The documentation concerning this hearing can be inspected before the public hearing online at http://doc.acton-ma.gov/get/document 73752. Due to the continued closure of Town Hall to the public, the hearing will be held online via Zoom. Login instructions for computers, laptops can be found here. From the computer, please click on the link below to join the meeting. https://zoom.us/forward/zoom.us/j/5039-18785, or from a telephone dial 646-876-9923 and enter webinar ID 503-918-785. Telephone users may dial *9 to request to speak after joining the meeting. Computer and app users may use the raise hand feature to request to speak. So I would like to introduce from Anderson and Krieger, Sam Dinning, who will be our legal counsel for this evening and will guide us through the procedure. I think, Jim, this is your first dangerous dog hearing, and welcome aboard. Sam, how should we begin?
I'd like to start with a brief summary of what authority, the legal basis for the hearing, a brief overview of the process, and then to proceed with testimony, if that works for you.
Sure, please.
Since I'm the new guy, could I just ask a question first?
Sure.
Would that be okay, John?
Please, yes.
The link that you read out loud appears to go nowhere. The one that seems to go somewhere is the one that ends in 73771. So for those that are following along at home, that's where to find the actual paperwork. It looks like that other address was used for a while and then has gone away.
I'm sorry about that. Okay. Sam?
Sure. So just to be clear, that's the http://doc.acton-dsweb/get/document- and Jim, can you say the number that does work there?
73771.
Great. Thank you. So the dangerous dog hearing is conducted pursuant to Mass General Laws, Chapter 140, Section 157. This is the dangerous or nuisance dog statute. The statute gives this board the authority upon receipt of a complaint to determine whether a dog is dangerous, meaning that it A, has caused injury by attacking a person or animal without justification, or B, behaves in a way that would cause a reasonable person to believe that it poses an unjustified threat of physical injury. The board will hear under oath from all witnesses who can testify to this issue. In particular, this complaint concerns a dog by the name of Yeager and events that took place on June 12th, 2020. If, after testimony has been taken and any evidence has been presented, the board declares Yeager to be a dangerous dog, the board will issue an order prescribing a remedy that may include, among other options, certain restraints, muzzling, or euthanasia should the circumstances warrant. The board's decision will be memorialized in a written decision issued shortly after this hearing, and any order of this board may be appealed to the district court within 10 days. So in taking evidence tonight, we're going to go through a few different steps. The board will first hear from any witnesses from the complaining party, including Ms. Maldonado, the animal control officer. The board will then hear from the dog owner and any witnesses that want to testify with the dog owner or on the dog owner's behalf. All witnesses will be sworn under oath, so we will ask everyone who intends to testify tonight to identify themselves and then to be sworn in and verify that you will be testifying accurately. Once all the testimony, all the evidence is provided, the board will close the public hearing. I will review the definition, the legal definitions of a dangerous dog, and then a vote will be taken by the board about whether this dog, Yeager, is in fact a dangerous dog. Once all testimony is given, there will not be further testimony or evidence heard by the board. The board will then deliberate on its determination, and it may take 2 or more votes. First, whether the dog is a dangerous dog as defined by statute, and second, if so, what remedy should be employed to ensure public safety. So during this time, for the benefit of the board, the board will have opportunities to ask questions of anyone who's providing evidence, to ask factual questions, to ask questions of me if there are questions about law or the options available to the board. And to members of the public, this is not the time to ask questions of other people who are providing evidence. If you have questions for the board, that's your prerogative. You can address those to the board, and the board can decide how, if at all, it wishes to respond to those statements or questions. I think that should be it for process. So I would ask first to address the complainant's case to hear from Ms. Maldonado, and then we can hear from the victim after Ms. Maldonado has finished.
Okay, Ms. Maldonado then. You would need to be sworn. So David?
Correct. Thank you.
Yes. Mel, would you swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth on this matter?
I do.
Okay, please begin.
Let's see. We're here tonight regarding Kate and Mark Bishop's dog Jaeger, who resides at 39 Oneida Road in Acton. The first complaint started in November of 2019. Jaeger continuously gets out of his house and charges dogs and owners walking by his residence. Jay Jacobson was the first to report this behavior of Jaeger on December 4th, 2019. Bill Funk reported Jaeger ran off the owner's property and tried attacking his dog to the point where he had to get physical with Jaeger to get him away. Mark Bishop, who is the owner of Jaeger, came running and kicked Jaeger to get him away and back to the house. Also, a concerned neighbor, Karen Dunn, called on December 6, 2019 to discuss how to stop Jaeger from getting out of his residence and how to keep the neighborhood safe. On June 12, 2020, Mark Bishop wrote me an email letting me know that Jaeger got out of his house once again and charged another dog. The dog Mark was referring to is owned by Dave Lunger. This time, Jaeger jumped up and bit Dave's right forearm. Dave went to the ER and the doctor confirmed it was a puncture wound, and Dave was treated and released. On August 19, 2020, Mark Bishop wrote me an email and he wrote, and I quote, "I finally saw the picture of the quote unquote wound. That's a scratch. You can clearly see it in the picture." On July 28th of 2020, backtracking a little bit, Mark Bishop wrote me an email and was concerned about the neighborhood dogs, other neighborhood dogs that were not leashed in the neighborhood. And I basically let him know about the town bylaws. As long as the dog is under their verbal command, they don't need a leash because Acton doesn't have a leash law. He wrote, "All reactive dogs, including mine, will have a problem with off-leash dogs. It makes me extremely nervous to walk my dogs in the neighborhood." End quote. This dangerous dog hearing is being held because the owners of Jaeger at 39 Oneida Road, Mark and Kate Bishop, cannot keep their dog under their control. There are numerous neighbors who fear for their safety and their children of the neighborhood's safety. If the Board of Selectmen deem Jaeger dangerous, there are a few guidelines I'd like to recommend to be set in place. Thank you.
Okay. So we go on to Mr. Lunger now.
Yes, I think it might make sense, because we're virtual tonight, to get anyone who would like to testify on behalf of Mr. Lunger or anyone else complaining about the dog to identify themselves so that we can be clear who is in attendance for that.
Okay.
Is it possible to have people raise their hands and to identify those?
Yes, if if you raise your hand and please put in the chat if you want to speak about a complaint about the dog. So Mr. Lunger is ready when.
Sure. So if we could just swear Mr. Lunger in.
Okay. And let me say also that if you want to speak, I need your full name in the chat. Just your first name will not do.
Can you hear me?
Yes. Yes, Mr. Lunger. Let me just swear you in. Do you swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth on this matter?
I do.
Okay. Thank you.
So I'll start off by making one correction to Nelba. It was my left arm and not my right arm that was bit. That said, there have been numerous incidents in the neighborhood, and there are 3 official ones that triggered this hearing, but there are numerous others in talking to neighbors with this same dog Jaeger. So I'm just going to mention, I'll just walk through the details of the June 12th incident, but the other 2 incidents did lead up to it. And the concern on my part is that those 2 initial incidents didn't change the behavior. So anyway, on June 12th, I was walking my dog Tucket, a golden retriever, elderly. She's soon to be 14 years old. I was walking on Oneida in front of the 39 Oneida, home of the owner. And the owner was with his dog in the yard. The dog apparently saw me and my dog first and made a mad dash for us. So I saw the dog just, screaming at me. So I picked up Tucket by surrounding all four of her legs with my arms and lifted her up to about my chest level. Her legs are dangling. However, the dog Jaeger was acting vicious and jumping up and down and towards Tucket and on me, trying to get at her. And so at this point, the owner subdued the dog because it took him a few seconds to get there, and he starts bringing back his dog to his yard. I placed Tucket on the ground, started walking away. I had some inkling to check my arm, and I see two blood spots about 2 inches away, indicating, in my mind, a puncture wound. Upon realization that I'd been bitten, on my walk back home, I placed a report to the Acton police. And then once home, I realized the better of the situation and decided to go to the ER because of the issue of rabies. And it turns out that the Jaeger is vaccinated for rabies, so that's not an issue. So just to summarize, of all these incidents and others I'm aware of, I think the aspect of this is of most concern is the inadvertent escape from indoors, and actually in my case it was outdoors. It shows the dog's inability to grab, it shows the dog's ability to grab momentarily escape opportunities to his advantage, but to the disadvantage of dog walkers of all ages, young to old. Additionally, I might mention that the owner stated his dog is merely excitable, but in no way is it aggressive, nor that it even bit me. This is particularly laughable and preposterous on its face. Although an apology was offered in his letter to the dog officer, to the current day, no direct apology has been received verbally, nor in the 2 written contacts I've had with him. Thank you.
Sure. Are there any other individuals who wish to testify on Mr. Lunger's behalf?
Yes, Mr. Funk would like to testify.
Mr. Funk?
1 second.
We have to swear you first, sir.
And Mr. Funk, you need to unmute. Okay, you've done that. Do you swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth on this matter?
Yes, I do.
Please go ahead.
I resided at 34 Oneida Road, and I had met the family and the dog one night. And the dog was extremely aggressive, to which the owner, Mark, had to restrain the dog firmly on the ground and indicated to me at that time that the dog is not used to being on a leash. It wasn't on a leash in Florida, and it's difficult to contain him right now. At some point after that, I can't remember if it was November, I contacted Nelba regarding the aggressive action of the dog as a result of one of the children having left the door ajar, and the dog came charging out. And there was ice on the ground. My dog slipped, and I nearly slipped, trying to keep the dogs away from each other. But Jaeger was quite aggressively coming out at us with bared teeth. Mark did run out, and he did apologize. Unfortunately, he also fell and hit his head, casualty of the event. I was just upset after that, and every time I walked by that place, my dog would shrink away from wanting to be on that side. We were never on that side. We always walked on the opposite side of the street, and it was difficult to convince my dog to walk on that side. I didn't even want to walk there. I'm just sorry that this has happened. That's all.
Okay, there's Jay Jacobson would like to speak. It just disappeared. Hold on.
Mr. Jacobson?
Oh, yes. Can you hear me?
Yes, we need to
Yeah,
swear you
okay.
in.
Yes.
Mr. Jacobson, do you swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth on this matter?
Yes, I do.
Thank you. Please go ahead.
Yes, I believe that the date, I'm the fellow that filed the first complaint with Nelba after the situation developed. And that goes back, I believe it was 11/16 of last year. And I was walking my dog, 14-pound miniature dachshund, across the street from the house we're discussing. And somebody, a woman, I did not know these people. A woman opened the front door and started to come out, I believe carrying a bag or something. Anyway, the dog ran by her, came charging. Now, I was not walking on their property. I was across the street. And came charging at Olive. And I'm going to refer to her as Little Olive because she's tiny. Anyway, the dog started to put his mouth over the back of my dog, but I caught just in time and pushed the dog away, put Olive under my arm, and the dog started to come at me in an attempt to get to Olive. I'm 70 years old. I was scared to death. I have never been through anything like this before in my life. And when all was said and done, and things got a little loud, I believe it was Kate Bishop at the time, who I had never met, came over and apologized. And I said, well, I'm sorry, that's not really enough. And that's when I called right then the police station on my cell phone. And eventually spoke with Nelba, and I filed the complaint. And first of all, I want to say how much I appreciate the fact that we're able to have a situation like this, to discuss a problem and try to solve it in a way that's appropriate for everyone. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anybody else who wishes to testify in Dave Lunger's case?
Yes, Pat Dunn.
Pat? We will need to swear you first.
Okay, Pat, you can unmute yourself. Pat, am I correct that you want to speak about a complaint about the dog?
No, I'm attending, and I was just verifying what my address and my full name was, so that you knew who it was, but I did not have a comment.
Oh, okay, that's fine. Thank you.
So is there anybody else who wishes to offer testimony?
Yeah, Mike Majors has his hand up, but has not said why. Let me just allow him to talk and see. Mike, you can unmute yourself. And did you want to have something to contribute about the complaint about the dog, or did you want to speak in another matter?
Excuse me, I guess it was a mistake. I have no dog in this race. Sorry.
Okay, so John, that's all then.
That's all. So Sam, there was a message from Kate Bishop that she wanted to cross-examine Dave Lunger. Is that permissible?
No, all comments should be directed to the board. The board has the opportunity at any point while people are talking, at any point, to interject, to ask questions, to follow up with people who have spoken later on in the hearing. The board can ask any questions that it would like, but there is no direct cross-examination.
Okay, should the board ask questions about Dave Lunger's case at this point, or should we wait till the end?
That's up to your discretion, whichever you would prefer.
Okay, so we keep it consistent. Is there anybody who would have a question to Dave Lunger or the witnesses on his behalf? Joan?
Is there any fencing around the yard of this house?
Is that to me, Dave Lunger? Seems to me that's to the owner.
Anyone who can answer the question.
There is none.
So, John, Melba has her hand up.
Melba?
I was just going to say, as far as I know, there is no fencing. I spoke to the owner last year, and he said he had some contractors come out to look at putting up fencing, but I guess he had too much rock in the area that they couldn't install it.
Okay, and one more, John. What is your role, Nelba?
In the dangerous dog hearing?
Yes.
I'm hoping to set some guidelines so Jaeger doesn't continuously get off the property. And
Are you a neighbor?
No, I'm animal control officer.
Oh, okay.
Okay, so is there anyone else with questions at this point? Jim?
This was a question for Mr. Funk, who described the dog as acting aggressively. And I was wondering if Mr. Funk could provide more details of sort of visually or behaviorally what that meant.
Mr. Funk, you can just unmute yourself.
Okay.
Please go ahead.
Yes, I mean, I've been a dog owner for decades, so I know when a dog is baring their teeth and taking aggressive steps, to be able to identify that there is aggressive tendencies emanating from an animal.
Okay, so baring of teeth.
Oh, yes.
Thank you.
Okay. So may we move into Mark Bishop's case on behalf of his dog Jaeger? Mark? Mr. Bishop?
I think Kate Bishop would like to talk first. I'm happy to unmute either.
That's
of
fine,
them.
sure.
Kate, you can unmute yourself and then I'll swear you in. Okay, Ms. Bishop, do you swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth on this matter? So you're unmuted, but we can't hear you?
I think right now she's.
No, I'm going to also allow.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can.
Please go ahead.
Okay.
And first answer if you tell the truth on this matter.
Absolutely, I do. I will.
Thank you.
I'm sorry to barge in. I don't know if I'm the most appropriate person to start, but I just wanted to clarify in response to the question about fencing. We have installed an invisible fence, so an electric fence. The fencing, the physical fence, it was not appropriate for our property, so we did install an electric fence to keep our dogs in the yard so they can no longer reach the street or get even close to it. My husband, Mark, was the primary person. I was witness to part of the incident, but I wasn't, a primary witness. I think it'd probably make sense for Mark to start, and then I can add in some comments after. That's okay.
Okay, let's hear from Mark then.
Okay, Mark, I'll swear you in. Do you swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth on this matter? Mr. Bishop?
He's noted in the chat that he can't hear.
I don't know if you can hear me now. Oh, okay, great. So, Mr. Bishop, do you swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth on this matter?
I do. Can you hear me?
Yes, but you're very quiet.
Can you hear me better?
It's probably okay.
Okay, I when you unmuted me, I think my audio got disconnected, so I lost the last minute or so of the conversation.
So at that point, Kate was just telling us that you had erected an electric fence. And so that's the only thing we've heard so far from your side.
Okay. So how should I proceed? Shall I take you through the process of what's happened here and how we've addressed these issues? Because what you've heard tonight is a snapshot in time from November to June. And there's some history that's important, but I don't want to waste people's time, but it's relevant.
No, take your time and tell your story.
Okay. So Jaeger is about 4 years old, and I got him from a shelter,
He went into doggy daycare a lot when I was traveling up to Massachusetts. So he's been around other dogs, non-aggressive, no issues. Had a backyard in Florida with a fence, so I didn't walk him a lot. But the doggy daycare didn't effectively control the energy of the dogs when they were like all together. And he has learned some bad behavior, which is quite evident now, and throughout the course of the last 8 months or so. So I'm not disputing the fact that he's not a well-behaved dog. In these instances, Jaeger is not baring his teeth. He is not growling. Jaeger is typically jumping up on his hind legs, and he is trying to sniff the butt of the other dog. And I'm not trying to be offensive here, but he is just trying to play with the other dog. He hasn't bitten any dog. The bite, well, it's not a bite, it's a scratch. The officer, Joachim, badge number 94, when he showed up at my house, I asked him about it, and he said that it was a scratch. I saw the picture eventually of the wound. You can see the dog's nails from David Lunger's dog that was sitting on his arm. He specified that there's all 4 paws were on his arm. That's what caused the 2 indentations in his arm. And you can see the scratch mark from the nail in the digital image. I couldn't see it in the printout that I got from the officer. So, yeah, my dog is reactive, and we have taken him to reactive dog training. We were driving to, oh man, where was it? It was like 40 miles away. So we went 6 or 7 sessions with the trainer. He got more exposure to dogs. He got more exposure in controlling his reaction. We have gotten a lot of compliments from our neighbors, even though they kind of polluted the well a little bit with all his knocking on doors about my dog. We have gotten a lot of compliments on how well behaved he is now. The electric fence has been great. He's been responding to training. We actually have some friends of ours that live in the neighborhood who walk their dogs past our yard. There's Jaeger in the front yard, and he, as a test, to keep training him, and he doesn't go across it. We have been doing the dog exposure to get him used to other dogs around, and he can't go play with them at 100%. He's played with the kids behind us. Our neighbors behind us. He's not this offensive, I'm out to bite people kind of dog. I mean, there's no case of that. He's scary because he's a 55-pound pit bull and he's black. Yeah, so I get it. People are afraid of that. I understand that. But that's also why we went through the training. We spent all the time for that. We spent the time and the training for the invincible fence, and the money for that. We looked at getting a real fence. That wasn't possible. It's not like we have ignored the situation. And it's been a progressive learning process for Jaeger and myself. I mean, in the middle of all this, COVID happened. We had it set up for training, but then everything got canceled in March and April. So the training stopped and didn't pick up until July when things started to open back up again. So we're also a victim of circumstance with respect to that. Kate, have I forgotten anything else or missed anything?
Kate, you can just unmute yourself again.
Okay. There's a few things that I'd like to state. One is Nelba made an assertion that a doctor confirmed that there was a puncture mark. I would just like to state that we've asked Mr. Lunger. So Mr. Lunger contacted us and demanded us to pay his co-pays, which we did. And in response, we asked him to provide any notes from the doctor because there is a fundamental disagreement as to what happened and how Mr. Lunger was damaged. We are very sorry that he was hurt in the incident. We feel very strongly that it was probably his dog or dog claws that punctured, especially since dog bites, for you get a puncture on the top of your arm, you'd need to have the teeth contact on the bottom. It's not like they're snakes. They don't just spontaneously put their teeth in. And the pictures that we've seen of the one picture that Mr. Lunger sent of the wound makes it look like the two little blood spots are about an inch apart, and not the 2 inches or so that would correspond to canine teeth for an adult dog of Jaeger size. I would also, we've had the refusal to get any evidence from Mr. Lunger, even though, like I said, he had demanded money from us and we have paid that. I would like to say that our dog has been, we have kids in the house. So this dog is around kids all the time. It has not bit anybody in our house. It has played with little kids. It has played with elderly. We have elderly neighbors that come up and like to pet the dog. We have, like Mark said, there's many people in the neighborhood who find this dog, who are dog owners or just not dog owners, who like Jaeger. They find him well behaved and nice, and they come out of the way to come and pet him. There's been this assertion that Jaeger is dangerous to children, and there's absolutely no factual evidence that anyone has put forward, nor is there any, that he is a danger to any children. Like I said, we have kids, they're teenagers, and if anyone deserved to be bit, it would be the stuff that they do to Jaeger. But again, he's not been aggressive with them at all. He's walked twice a day, every day. So he has constant exposure to the neighborhood. He has constant exposure if there was a real problem, and there's a lot of dogs in our neighborhood. So we pass dogs pretty much every day. And if there were a case where Jaeger were completely out of control danger, there would be more than a few complaints where Jaeger snuck out of the house behind us. And we have very much taken that seriously. And like I said, we installed the invisible fence so that Jaeger can't leave the yard. At this point, he's scared of the yard, but he can't physically leave the yard without a constant shock. And we got the invisible fence that will not turn off. You can't outrun our fence. The old technology you could outrun. I think you can, if the dog went more than 12 feet maybe, it would be outside the boundaries. We got the upgraded fence so you can't actually outrun it on purpose to make sure that our neighbors were safe and that no more of these nuisance incidents where he scampered out behind someone coming in the house happened ever again. I want to say that we take this very seriously. We take our neighbors' health and well-being and security seriously. The other thing that we've done that Nelba had recommended, and we've done it since she's recommended it, was we walk Jaeger with a basket collar. Like I said, we think it's not necessary because we don't believe he's bit anybody, but out of an abundance of caution, we have happily done that. And we have also been using an e-collar on walks to make sure that that we have that as a second, in addition to all of the positive reinforcement training that we're doing, because Nelva also suggested that. So we've been doing everything humanly possible to make sure that our neighborhood is safe and secure, our neighbors are respected, and I think that's pretty much all that I have to say, other than we also have spoken with our vet who wrote us a nice note, which I guess we can't present. And we have one neighbor testimonial about how, she heard about the alleged incident. She came right over and actually wanted to meet Jaeger and befriend him more because she thought that he was a very nice dog. And I don't know if it's possible to show those or anything else, but, those are other recitals that we have for in support of our case.
Is there anybody else who wishes to speak on behalf of the bishops and Jaeger?
If there is somebody, please raise your hand. So, Kate, or any of the people you mentioned here, there are 2 people that raised their hands to the two people who just raised their hand, please put your full name in the chat. And ideally your full name and street, but okay. Yeah, one person I'm gonna allow to speak, John.
Go ahead.
This is Julie.
Julie, if you would just state your name and we need to swear you in.
Yep, Julie Beckerdite. I'm at 8 Huron Road.
Okay, Julie, do you swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth in this matter?
Yes, I will.
Thank you. Please go ahead.
So I live probably the closest to Jaeger, being diagonally across from him. He's a very nice dog. I've gone up to him and said hi to him multiple times. Never had a problem. I've walked past him with my dog without a problem. I'm not at all scared of the dog. He has definitely even improved his behavior because I've seen him doing the positive reinforcement training with him. And he's gotten even better than he originally was. And I don't think there's any need to be fearful of him. He has a lot of energy and he just wants to play, but he's a very nice dog. And I usually go out of my way to go and see him and say hi to him because he is a sweet dog.
Thank you.
Thank you. And I'm going to let Mary Ann speak here.
Mary Ann, would you please state your name and David will swear you in.
All right, my name is Mary Ann Farrington.
Okay. Okay. Do you swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth in this matter?
I do.
Thank you. Please go ahead.
I just wanted to say that I've seen this dog from both sides. In the beginning, I was afraid to walk my dog near their house because you could see from inside the house it was, you know, bouncing at the windows and I've been not this dog, but I've been on the other end of other dogs with my dog walking, and I know how scary that can be. But I've also seen these people work really, really hard with this animal. And I've recently walked my dog. It's also a large animal, and he's actually bigger than Jaeger. But I've recently walked by, and they will go into a driveway and do some positive reinforcement training, and the dog really did essentially ignore us. I mean, I think basically because they were doing the positive training thing with treats and stuff like that. But my husband has also walked him, and in the beginning, that dog did seem to be aggressive, but now he is not aggressive. I think they've been doing a pretty good job at trying to work with this animal so that he can be something that would be safer in our neighborhood.
Thank you. Anyone else who wishes to testify on behalf of the bishops?
There are no hands up, John.
Melba, you had a question?
I just wanted to correct Kate when she had mentioned Jaeger wearing, she had called it a basket collar. It's a basket muzzle, and it's actually a device that goes over the dog's muzzle and ties up around his ears. That way, if he did slip the lead or run after another dog, he potentially couldn't harm or bite another dog or person. So it's a basket muzzle.
Okay. Are there any questions from board members to the bishops? David?
Yes. So Kate and Mark, I was wondering, before you install the electric fence, how is Jaeger getting out?
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Kate, do you want to answer or do you want me to?
I think it's the same answer. It's always inadvertently. So, you know, the one time with Mr. Jacobson, I was going to work and I was just leaving the house and Jaeger just scooted out behind me. And it, you know, the interaction was only a few seconds long and it was, you know, understandably not a positive one for Mr. Jacobson, but it, you know, that's the only way that he's gotten out. He's not roamed the streets ever, you know, and these times where he slipped out of the house, he's not been outside of anyone's sight for any period of time. It's just, you know, he scooted out a few times in the last year that we've lived here in Acton.
Right. So it sounds like when he's gotten out, someone's got the door open to go in or out, and he sneaks by. Is that right?
Right, which is why we got the invisible fence, because he wears the collar all day long. Can't
Right.
slip out of the yard.
And since he's had the invisible fence on, has he left the yard?
No, it's hard sometimes to convince him to leave the driveway to go for a walk because he's a little scared right now.
I understand that. John, can I ask a couple more questions?
Please, of course.
People. Nelba, I assume you've met the dog. Is that right?
I've not met the dogs or the owner in person. I've just had phone conversations with both of Kate and Mark.
Okay, thank you. And Mr. Longer, can I ask you a question?
Certainly.
Yeah, are you, as far as you're concerned, are you certain that the punctures were caused by Jaeger's teeth?
I went to the emergency room. I was treated. The wound was dressed, and they said that's a dog bite.
Right. Yeah. I understand, but
The puncture wound, it made, I don't know, it's probably not very deep. There weren't punctures on the other side, but I should mention that my dog's paws were dangling below my arms. So the only way I could get this was from Jaeger.
Okay.
And it was a grabbing reach for my dog's neck, I think.
But it sounds like you didn't feel
it. Was inadvertent. Pardon me?
It sounds like you didn't feel it at the time. You felt it, maybe because of adrenaline or whatever, but you felt it later, and then you took yourself to the doctor.
It was clearly adrenaline, and I didn't, feel, teeth going into me at the time. But within about 30 seconds, I had reason to look at my arm when I put my dog back on the ground, and my adrenaline was lowering, and I saw the blood.
Yes, I understand. Thank you. That's all, John, from me.
Thank you. Is there anybody else with questions for the bishops? I had two, either for either bishop. When was the invisible electric fence installed?
It was installed about a month ago.
About a month ago. Okay. And when did you take Jaeger for the 6 to 7 sessions of dog training?
That started at the it was either the end of June or beginning of July. Kate would know exactly.
I think it started at the beginning of July. We were at Four Leggers Dogs, and it was a 6-week program in Beverly. And we actually have signed up for the next session of training for reactive dogs starting in September. It's later this month. It's at the end of the month.
So these actions were in response to the incident with Mr. Lunger then?
So we had contacted a trainer previously in the winter, and Mark and Jaeger had done an in-person session in December, and that was definitely prompted by the concerns with Mr. Funk and Mr. Jacobson. But over the winter, with the weather and we didn't really do a lot of outside walking or training. We were starting to re-engage in March when the spring came, and then everything shut down. And that our original trainer actually had some medical conditions, so she wasn't able to work with us. So it took us a while, while we were in COVID shutdown, before we found another trainer and an opportunity to get this addressed.
So was any further training suggested, or did the 6 to 7 sessions complete the necessary coursework?
So the dog program that we had him in at Four Leggers is a reactive dog program, and it was a 6-week multiple dog session. It wasn't in person, and we also took him for a private session afterwards. So we did 7 weeks of training with him. So he completed it successfully. There's just another level, so it's like Algebra 1 and Algebra 2. So we're just committed to working with him because it took him 3.5 years to get to the point that this situation happened, and it will take us a while to make sure that he's deprogrammed and calm around other dogs, and that's our goal.
Any other questions from board members to the bishops? Would there be any further questions to Mr. Lunger?
Is it possible for me to make an additional comment?
Mr. Bishop, yeah, sure.
Okay. Is this the appropriate time? Is this the appropriate time?
Yes, if you could speak up a little bit.
Okay. Can you hear me better now?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, my apologies. So my testimony also needs to include that when the incident happened with Mr. Lunger, my eyes were always on my dog, and I did not see him bite Mr. Lunger.
Okay. Would there be any further comments from Mr. Lunger in response to what you heard from the bishops?
One thing I might mention is this invisible fence is of no, would not factor into my thoughts as to whether I'd walk on Oneida. I will not walk on Oneida being protected by an invisible fence, because once this dog Jaeger sees another dog and goes wild with adrenaline flowing, he's going to go right through the fence and ignore the initial pain of that boundary and do his thing. So that's I'm just not going to go there.
Anything further, Mr. Lunger?
Nope.
Okay. Sam, so at this point, we should close the hearing?
That's right.
So we need a motion for that?
Sorry, unless David had something to add.
Well, there are two things. Two people's hands just came up.
Okay.
Mr. Jacobson and Mr. Bishop, and actually both bishops. I didn't know whether we had to get Ms. Maldonado's recommendations before we close the hearing, or whether we can do that after we close the hearing. But I'll start with the people who want to testify.
Please.
Okay, Mr. Jacobson, please go ahead.
I just had one quick question, and again, in an effort to make sure that this gets done to everybody's satisfaction, which I guess is a key element here. Will Jaeger continue to be, I should say, is he going to have to wear the muzzle when he's out walking with his masters? And will he have the muzzle on when he's within the electric fence as a safeguard?
So,
and I guess this goes to Nelba, I guess. I don't know.
That would be up to the board to decide. If the dog is deemed dangerous, then there are certain protocols that we would set in place. Until then, the bishops have been taking my advice and making sure Jaeger has that basket muzzle on when they're walking him in the neighborhood. Okay. I've not said anything to them about leaving that on their property in their yard with the invisible fence.
So, and John, the bishops have their hand up again. I don't know.
Sure,
if you want
please, of course.
So, Kate or Mark, you can speak.
I'll defer to my wife first.
Kate, you'll have to unmute yourself.
Okay, I just wanted to state two things. One is I haven't personally seen Mr. Lunger walk in front of our house in a while, but he for sure walks on Oneida in our neighborhood all the time. And I'm glad that he feels that he can walk in our neighborhood. We want him to be safe, but the statement that he's not on Oneida is not factually correct. It might be that he chooses not to walk on our part of the block. But also the invisible fence that we installed doesn't have an initial shock. If the dog crosses the boundary, and we have two dogs, if either dog crosses the boundary, the shocking does not stop until they cross back into the yard. So it's not an initial thing. The old technology of the fence did have a means to outrun the shock. It was only available for 12 feet within of the wire. And the new version that we have purchased means that the shock won't stop until they come back and retreat to the yard. And we got that on purpose. So I just wanted to clarify.
And I wanted to make.
Sure, Mark.
Yeah, I'm sorry. And I wanted to clarify that we are working with the training with Jaeger by having our neighbors with their dogs walk by while Jaeger is in the front of the yard to assess his behavior. I will not, I am a responsible dog owner. I will not put my dog out there in the yard if I didn't think that he responded to the training. it's evident from the testimony that he does respond to training, because there is a differential behavior from when this behavior started to what has been observed now. We even had a testimony of someone tonight who has testified exactly to that. So he is a trainable dog. He's not a wild and crazy dog. That is not trainable. Therefore, I wanted to reassure the panel that Jaeger is trained also with other dogs walking by while he's in our front yard, so that I can gain confidence that his training is working.
Thank you. No hands up, John.
Okay, so Sam, would it be appropriate we take a motion to close the hearing?
I'd actually, because I think if there are remedies needed, if the board does decide that Jaeger is a dangerous dog, because there may be some testimony needed regarding remedies, I'd like to go over that briefly now, and perhaps get Ms. Maldonado's recommendation as well, as either you or David had suggested.
Okay, let's do that then, please.
So the first step, as I mentioned, there would be two votes here. The first vote would be whether or not Jaeger is a dangerous dog. For the sake of the record, I'll read that definition of a dangerous dog again. Dangerous dog is a dog that either, one, without justification, attacks a person or domestic animal, causing physical injury or death, or two, behaves in a manner that a reasonable person would believe poses an unjustified, imminent threat of physical injury or death to a person or to a domestic or owned animal. So that would be the first step, deciding whether or not Jaeger is a dangerous dog, meeting that legal definition. The second step, if so, would be determining the appropriate remedies. There are 7 remedies that the statute specifically lays out. In any of these, Jaeger would not be able to be under the control of anyone who is under 18 years old. That comes by definition with the declaration that he is a dangerous dog.
John, there's someone talking in the background. It makes it difficult to hear Sam.
Is this better, Joan?
Yes.
Okay. So the 7 remedies that are allowed by statute, one is that the dog be humanely restrained, and this is when it's in the yard. That is some sort of restraint while it's in the yard. Second is that it be confined to the premises. Sorry, I think there was some background noise here again. So that would be that the dog is confined to the premises. Joan, can you hear me okay here? There's someone else on the call in the next room.
Yeah, I can hear that voice.
Give me 1 second and I'll change the microphone that I'm using. See if this works any better. Sorry about that. So the second would be, the second would be confinement. Actually, sorry, give me 1 second. My apologies, there's someone else on a call and we have a small space right now. So the second option, as I was starting to say, was that the dog would be confined. Now, statute does not provide for the invisible fence as a method of confinement. The statute provides for a pretty specific lock or dog run area is how it says. It has to have either a floor or fencing that goes 2 feet below the ground. I know that has come up in previous hearings before the board. So that is the definition of confined. The third remedy that's available is muzzling and restraint. that would mean either muzzle and or being on a leash at all times that the dog is outside, and that leash would have to be of a certain strength and be no longer than 3 feet long. The fourth option is proof of insurance. Fifth option is providing clear identification to the board, or sorry, to the appropriate animal control officer. The sixth option is spaying or neutering, and the seventh is euthanasia. So I want to be clear about those options at the outset. The board can choose any combination of those options, can choose none to all of those, or some combination thereof that it deems appropriate. But I did want to put those out there in case the board or anyone, well, if the board had specific questions about which options, or wanted to develop facts about which options would be viable.
Yeah, I have a question. Nelba, have there been any complaints since the electric fence was installed?
No.
Thank you.
Sam, we can't include as a remedy the maintenance of the invisible fence, can we?
That's not something that the statute provides, and the statute doesn't give or anything else as the board shall, as the hearing authority shall deem fit. There's no catch-all like that, so I don't think that that would be an appropriate remedy, no.
Unless the parties agree.
The parties can agree to whatever they'd like, yes.
So, okay, so what would be our David?
So before we close the hearing, should we get Ms. Maldonado's recommendation? Should we find Jaeger to be a dangerous dog?
Sam?
Yes, that would be
David's
appropriate.
question. Okay, Nelba, then
I
your
believe in the
recommendation.
past we had closed testimony before my recommendations came up, but I'm going with the flow with you guys, and I'll just, in addition to the 7 statutes, number 7, I would just cross right off the list. I don't believe this dog needs to be euthanized.
Hi, how you doing? Come on, bud.
Okay.
Can you guys hear me?
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
I would like to see a fence system be installed inside the residence for every door on the first floor. That way, if a door were to open, or if one of the children in that residence were to open the door, there'd be another barrier so the dog couldn't get out. Also, I know that they had mentioned they are doing a bunch of training, and they've done apparently really well. It seems like I have not had any complaints since the invisible fence, and they have been taking my recommendations with the basket muzzle. But I think, I'm not sure if you can add this into it or not, but all fines from here on out start at the fee of $200 and increase within $100 increments for each and every complaint if the dog did get off the property. I'm not sure about the new electric fence system. I'd have to research that more, talk to somebody from the company to see how that actually works. I'm not a big fan of electric fence because I know a bunch of dogs that can still just run right through that. So not sure how you want to handle that. As for the fencing, I know it is hard in their yard to install fencing, especially if it's going to be 2 to 3 feet underground. But having a kennel run area where you can have a concrete floor or whatnot would be an option that they can put in their yard, as opposed to digging 2 or 3 feet down to keep the dog in. Other than that, statutes 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 and 6, which Sam just read, I would apply all of that to this.
So you would say the dog, you would say we meet the threshold question that the dog is dangerous.
I would.
And I'll just clarify for the record that is a determination for the board to make.
Okay, so Sam, we would close the hearing at this point and go into our discussion.
Yes, that would be appropriate.
Okay, so is there a motion, Lynn, to close the hearing?
So move.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, so David, would you call the roll?
Mr. Snyder Grant?
Aye.
Ms. Gardner?
Aye.
Mr. Charter?
Aye.
Mr. Benson?
Aye.
And I'll say aye, so the hearing's closed.
Okay, so I guess we would begin with the first question: has the dog met the standards for being dangerous or not? Dean.
Yeah, I'd move that the board find that this is a dangerous dog as defined by the statute.
Is there a second?
Yes.
Okay, is there any discussion on whether the dog is dangerous?
I think that since they've taken the time to go for training and have installed the electric fence and there have been no complaints since, I would not think he's dangerous.
David?
Yeah, I'm not sure it meets the standards that Sam read that define a dangerous dog. I mean, I understand that there were a couple of incidents. It sounds like the bite might have been inadvertent or whatever. We have conflicting testimony there. But it doesn't sound like Jaeger was, attacking Mr. Lunger. But that that Jaeger wanted to go after Mr. Lunger's dog, whether it was to play or whatever. I don't know. But it doesn't seem to me that he meets the standard of a dangerous dog. We've heard testimony from other people that he's not dangerous. I also think that the bishops have tried to taken steps to control their dog. We've also heard testimony that the dog's behavior has gotten better since the training, and they've installed the invisible fence. And so again, Ms. Bishop said a couple of times that this is not the kind of electric fence you can run through. It remains on as long as you're outside the property. And so, anyway, so the two things, I don't think it meets what I heard doesn't meet the standard as being a dangerous dog. And secondly, the bishop seems to have taken steps to control the dog.
Jim.
Could I ask Sam a question about the definition?
Sure.
Okay, so what I didn't hear in the definition was anything about, are we certifying that the dog is dangerous now? Because I agree with David and Joan's points about the training. There seems to have been a transformation in the dog's behavior. But what I see is that in the past, there were people who reasonably thought that the dog was dangerous and were approached by it. So even setting aside the confusion about, or the dispute about whether there was an actual bite, sort of the first definition, it seemed like the second definition has been met in my mind, but I didn't know whether the law required a finding that the dog is currently dangerous.
I think the law is written in the present tense. I think arguably, so there were two prongs that I read. The first one is without justification attacks another person or domestic animal causing physical injury or death. That, of course, is in the past tense. That is something that happened. The second prong of behaves in a manner that a reasonable person would believe poses an unjustified imminent threat of physical injury or death to a person or domestic animal. That is written in the present tense as if it is on an ongoing basis. So I think that is the appropriate distinction.
Yeah, that's very helpful. Thank you.
Okay, so to the threshold question, there was I think a motion and a second to say that Jaeger be declared a dangerous dog. Is there, that's the threshold question, and if we get over the threshold question, then we talk about remedies. But let's deal with the threshold question first. Is there any further discussion on prong one? Dangerous? Is he a dangerous dog? Okay, then, being no further discussion, then let's vote. David, would you call the roll?
Yes, Mr. Snyder-Grant,
No.
Ms. Gardner,
No.
Mr. Charter,
Yes.
Mr. Benson,
Yes.
and I also vote no. So that motion
Okay,
fails.
Okay, so the motion fails, so that would end the hearing then?
That's correct.
Okay. Okay, so hearing is closed. The dog is not determined to be dangerous, and that would be it then.
That's correct.
And thank you, and to parties, thank you, and best of luck, and be safe.
Thank you, John.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so our next item would be number 4, would be discuss results of September 8th special town meeting. So I guess from my perspective, I thought we had a very good meeting. We attracted 437 people, which was about 150 more, 160 more than attended the annual meeting. It was a very interesting mix of issues from Piper Lane to the climate article, to the name change article, to the small business grant article. There were good presentations and very good discussions. I thought where we didn't do well, and it's really on us, is on Article 8. We just, we didn't provide a summary at all, let alone an adequate summary as to, what the article was about. What was what people repeatedly asked is what was the reason for the restriction in the 1980s, and we didn't explain that well at all, and people wanted to know the background and the history and why is there a need to remove the restriction. So my sense would be is to, let's do a better job and bring it back in April, because there was something certainly in it for the Strawberry Hill property owner, and the easement, there was something in it for the town, because that's an intersection we really got to improve. So any other comments about the meeting, or particularly Article 8? David?
Yes, I was just wondering if you or John Mangiarotti knows if the legal action from the landowner there is likely to move ahead, or what the story is.
John?
I don't have a specific knowledge of what the property owner's intent is, but I do believe they're here tonight virtually.
Well, let's hear from them if they're, because I know they were, from a note that I saw, they were kind of overwhelmed, disappointed, and.
So who are they? A person named Karen Root Watkins has her hand up.
Yes, that's who my understanding is. It was someone that has an interest in the property.
Karen and Ian Watkins.
Okay, can I let her talk?
Please, yes.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, Karen.
So we're not the homeowners, we live across the street, but I just wanted to clarify, our understanding was that easement is all about making the intersection safer and creating a better sight line along Pope Road for people who are waiting to go westbound on Strawberry Hill.
Yeah.
Is that correct?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. So basically, it was just a misunderstanding of that people didn't understand what the easement was about, and it's just a issue of making it clearer for next year.
Well, it's not only making the easement clear, they want to know what the restriction that went on the property in the 1980s was, and the history of it, and why is it being removed now? Is there going to be a large housing development going on the parcel or part of the parcel? And, those are, questions we get in the context of these articles. And those are all fair questions, and we just have to do a better job. Dean.
Yeah, I would, I don't know if we're getting feedback here. I think I agree that, it was not well presented. There's a huge amount of very tangled history there. And, at the last minute at the meeting, there was some really irresponsible misrepresentations made from the audience. So I definitely agree that it should be brought forward again in April. And I think that, we should work closely with the town manager and staff to really get a little bit more up to speed on these things and be prepared to make a much more richly nuanced presentation.
Joan.
No, my apologies to everybody.
No. You'll get your easement and intersection. Okay. Anybody else, Jim?
I think one thing that I still can't actually answer for people is, which I think David, you were asking about, is what happens now? What's the risk of not passing this? And so I think that's another answer we should develop before we bring this back.
David?
Yeah, I know, John, I don't think it was your fault. I think, in hindsight, it probably shouldn't have been on consent, and we should have, prepared a presentation, but that's not what we did. And so, hindsight's easy. But I think, one of the confusing pieces for people, and I have to admit that my understanding is a little bit confused, is that this restriction was supposed to have been removed like more than 30 years ago, but there was a recording error. And so it wasn't actually removed. And so people the owners can take legal action potentially, saying that the recording should have happened. That's my understanding. And so, that's for the courts to decide. But it's better to decide these things amicably rather than in the courts.
Absolutely.
Well, I think it's the definition of what the restriction is.
Yes.
Yeah, my understanding was it was supposed to have been removed 30 years ago, and there was some glitch and something slipped up. Things were, a lot looser in those days. It just didn't get recorded, and we are where we are now. But, people, abutters, neighbors, fairly so wanted a little better explanation than that. So I would hope that we could just bring it back and not get ourselves involved in a lawsuit, or the property owners sue and we don't defend, and then it comes across as just a lack of transparency and there was a fix in and it wasn't right. So, let's bring it back and do the job we're certainly capable of doing.
John, Ian Watkins has his hand up.
Sure. Mr. Watkins, sir.
You could.
Hi there, hope you can hear me okay. I'm about a minute away from a call with Asia Pacific, so I'll try and be brief. The one thing I think would help tremendously for the audience at the town meeting would be real clarity on not only the safety benefit, but I think the environmental impact. because I think a lot of people who were voting against were voting against on an understanding of a quite drastic possible impact on trees because of this motion, which was completely different to the understanding that Karen and I had got at the Strawberry Hill traffic study meeting about the impact of the sightlines. So I think one thing I would ask respectfully is as you rightly said about taking it back in April, but particularly making sure that there's clarification for the people who are concerned about environmental impacts. Hope that's okay.
Okay. So, any further comment on town meeting? Jim?
Just a couple quick things. One is I am also a person who was pleased that we had 432 people there. It still came home to me that there's a lot more voters than that in Acton, and that there was a fair chunk of questions that came to us as a board after the meeting or before the meeting that said, why can't we remotely participate? My understanding is that the governor changed that for emergency purposes for representative town meetings, but there's been no move by the governor to make a similar change for open town meetings. And there also has not been any legislative change to make that a permanent possibility for towns to take on. So I guess I'm sitting with that still, that I wish there a way for us to move towards allowing even more people to participate.
Okay. Anyone else? Okay. Then let's move on to item 5, discussion of pump track at Quarry Road in Narrow Park. And we have a presentation from Nathan Kleinsmith, who's a junior at the high school. And this pump track would be his Eagle Scout project, and he'll be assisted by Mike Graffio. So, gentlemen. Hi, Nathan.
Hi, can you all hear me?
Yes.
Great. So we're here today to talk about the Acton pump track that we'd like to build. We're here to ask you to let us build this track as my Eagle project here today. So I believe I made a presentation. I believe that was in the packet, and you all hopefully you all went through it. But I'd be happy to do a quick overview of it, just to go over some of the key points again. If you all are familiar with it, I can also just jump right into questions. But I do have a presentation available if you'd like.
John, I think it would be helpful.
Okay, so why don't you just let's go through the presentation. I know it was in the packet, and I assume everyone has looked at it, but let's just do it because we have an audience here tonight as well.
Of course. All right, so this is the Acton pump track. Who are we? I am Nathan Kleinsmith. I will be a senior this year at Acton Boxford Regional High School, working with a few other members of the mountain bike community, and we are looking to bring a pump track to Acton. Now you might be wondering, what is a pump track? A pump track is by definition a small loop trail containing rollers and bank turns and features, all designed specifically to be ridden by mountain bikes. They have many great advantages, mainly for building skills for mountain bikers of all ages and experience. And it's just also, it's a whole lot of fun to ride. It would really be a great asset to this community. A few reasons we should build one: they're fun, they're designed for all ages, all abilities. It promotes a great activity. It's outside, it's healthy. Really a great activity that I have come to love. The nearest pump track is one that was built in Chelmsford. This pump track was built by the New England Mountain Bike Association at Russell Mill in Chelmsford, and it's been really successful. They've had a great time with it, and it's a huge attraction for many local riders. I know tons of kids who are super excited whenever they're able to go there, if their parents are able to drop them off. But they haven't had a whole lot of problems with trash or anything. It's really been a good success there. It's been well maintained. Mountain biking in Acton. The mountain biking scene in this area has really been jump-started by the local team, which Adam Nolde actually started, and he is one of the folks who's working with us to build this pump track. And we have grown from a team of about 30 riders the first year to well over 60, 70 riders. We've actually had to cap registration because the team has gotten so popular. We've actually grown to become one of the largest teams in the league. We are participating in the New England High School Cycling Association League. We do everything from just fun rides and even some racing in the spring. So that really just demonstrates how much support there is in the area, especially with the younger age group, and how much dedicated people there are who this pump track would benefit. Right, there we go. So where do we want to build this? We've considered a number of other locations all around town. We're looking at all municipal properties here because that makes most sense for what we're doing. The reasons that this property was decided on to be the best property at 70 Quarry Road was, first of all, because of terrain. It has enough space. It is relatively flat. There's not a whole lot of trees that we'd have to take down. It's also a relatively good location with Narrow Park, the rail trail. It's kind of a center for recreation in the town. We think that a pump track would fit in very nicely here. Narrow Park also has some amenities such as, porta potties if someone, needs to go. Like most conservation lands, it's not going to need a porta potty. But Narrow Park provides some additional resources, especially in the summer, when they have the snack shack and all that fun stuff. Convenience, the property is super easy to get to by bike on the rail trail. Many of the users will be kids who can't drive, so that would be awesome for them to be able to bike there themselves on the rail trail and get there in a safe manner. It's also right next to Wolf Hole Conservation Land, which bikes are allowed on, and mountain bikes do like to ride there. So that's also an additional resource for it. And we've also gone to the Land Stewardship Committee and the Recreation Committee, and they've both agreed that this is a suitable location. Now, the area that I showed in the last slide was 1.3 acres roughly, but our pump track will not be 1.3 acres. That's a lot of dirt. It'll take up less than half an acre, and it will be relatively situated to the Quarry Road side of the property. Let's see, that is for two reasons. One is to set it back from the yellow trail. We've heard some concerns that we don't want bikes riding right next to the conservation land trails. We've also heard some concerns from abutters that they would rather have the track closer to Narrow Park than to their property due to noise and other concerns like that. So we decided that it would be best to place the track roughly on the Quarry Road side. You can see this rough map here. It is a very fluid design. It's made all of dirt. There's no pavement. There's no permanent features per se. So nothing's super set in stone. Like I said before, the forest here is fairly sparse. We will not take down any large trees. It'll be a relatively low impact project. And like I said before, it will all be made of dirt. So, if it had to be taken down for some reason, it could return to its natural state in a matter of years. The design, our pump track will take up less than half an acre. The design will incorporate the natural geography. Once we get a survey of the property, we will be able to design the track around that geography, keeping in mind drainage, and the natural flow of the terrain, working around major trees that we don't want to take down and such. We will be bringing in all the dirt to build the track for a couple reasons. One of them is because we don't want to disturb the ground. I believe that if we had to use the dirt that was there, we'd have to conduct an archaeological survey, and we don't want to do that. Also, raising the track up is better for drainage, and it'll just make the process easier to conduct in general, because you don't have to deal with the natural ground. We're connecting with some experts who have experience building pump tracks and other mountain bike specific terrain, and who have experience in working with dirt and natural features. So that'll be excellent and very helpful when we need to design this. Construction. So where are we going to get the dirt from? Because it is a pretty decent amount of dirt. We have talked to a few folks from the Department of Public Works, and nearby, as I'm sure you know, there is a yard with a sizable amount of loam there. And we have talked to some people. It seems like we can get some of that loam for free. Now, because of the design of it, that loam does not pack super well because it doesn't have a particularly high clay content. So we will be buying some of our own dirt to mix with that loam to get the correct ratio of clay in our dirt so that it can be used to build a pump track and so that it packs properly and drains properly and is a sustainable surface. What will construction look like? Some of it will be done with a bobcat. That's mostly to move the dirt around, get it in the rough shape. It will also be a sizable amount of handwork, packing it in, shaping the track.
That's my headphone.
We still hear you.
Do you guys hear me?
Yes.
Awesome. All right, I think my headphones shut off. Sorry about that. So some rough steps that we'll take. We got to clear the path to make room for the track, get the dirt, mix it, screen it, deliver it. We'll organize all the logistics. Then the kind of power tool stage of it, we'll use the bobcat to move the dirt around, get it in the rough shape, pack it in, shape it, get it into its final shape, then just kind of finish off the track, put in any little details, you know, put up a sign, that kind of stuff. Remedies, parking. We have heard that Nara Park is relatively strained on parking, so we don't want to rely 100% on Nara Park's parking. So we are proposing to put in roughly 5 to 10 spaces on the opposite side of Quarry Road from the pump track. This will just be simple dirt parking, nothing too serious there. And we've looked at it. It seems like there's ample room there to put in a few spaces. Trash. We can have a trash can there. You know, bikers are environmentally friendly. We've all been kind of trained to respect our trails and use our trails kindly, because if we don't respect our trails, we don't get to use them. We want to use our trails. Bathrooms, we don't think that a bathroom is needed here. Most users are only going to be there for an hour. Like the conservation area, it's not really needed. We'll post a sign similar to the one here, with, you know, safety information, proper use, that kind of stuff. NEMBA. NEMBA is the New England Mountain Bike Association, and we have good friends there. I'm sure many of you know Philip Kais, who I believe is on the Land Stewardship Committee, and he used to be the executive director of NEMBA. He's very closely tied in with them. We know a few other people. We know many other people from NEMBA. Many of the people working on this track are members of NEMBA, and NEMBA has agreed to assist us with this project, help us with construction and maintenance, you know, provide some labor, that sort of stuff. We've also discussed with them entering a memorandum of understanding so that they could help with the maintenance of it. We've also applied for a trail grant with them, but they're a super useful organization and willing to support this project. A couple other notes. We will raise funds through GoFundMe. We're budgeting out $4,000 to $5,000. A lot of that's dirt, some of that's tool rentals, and then some other little details like water, that kind of stuff, just for using to build the track. Liability with regards to use, like the skate park, will be handled similarly to that. Although this is actually significantly safer than the skate park because the skate park's made out of concrete. This is going to be all dirt. Kids will be wearing helmets. It's relatively safe. They're not going super fast or anything. So it's safer than the skate park in comparison. Timeline-wise, my Eagle Scout deadline is in June 2021 when I turn 18. So in order to get all the paperwork done with the Boy Scouts of America, it would need to be done sometime in the spring of 2021. So it would be ideal to start the project this fall and maybe even get into some construction before the ground freezes, assuming we can get the logistics figured out. We have talked to the abutters of the property. They raised some concerns about increased trail use, increased use at Narrow Park, and some concerns about riders riding on the road riding on their driveway. So we're willing and we'd love to work with them. I don't know if any of them are on this Zoom call right now, but we've talked to them and we're definitely we would love to work with them and make sure all their concerns are heard, make sure we can make sure everyone's happy, basically. All right, that's the presentation. It will be available as a public document, so feel free to review it. So I guess we're open to questions now. Actually, Mike, do you have anything to add?
Nathan, I don't think I could add anything to the excellent job you did there with that presentation. Thank you.
Okay, so I guess a threshold question that I would have, are there any abutters who are in the audience who wish to comment on the project? Okay. And just another procedural question. What would the authorizations would the pump track project, John, need from the town to go forward?
We would need to work with the custodian of the land, which is this board, and our staff to just determine what needs, if any, would be required of staffing, and if there's any ongoing expenses that we would need to be planning for going forward. Once something is built, it does need to be maintained in some form, and I understand there's a plan that was laid out, but it would be something that our team would have to sort of shepherd through. So that would be something that I would want to work on with the proponent if the board supports moving forward with this.
Dean, do you have any questions?
Yeah, I guess first off, Nathan, that was a really very impressive presentation. Thank you for that. I guess my questions for the town managers just sort of follow up on his comments. I think that if the board decided to approve this, I really need to know that there is a town department or a town committee that's going to shepherd it through, and who that might be. And I think that would reassure me. Nathan's probably going to go off to college another year or two, and we want to make sure that if this gets built, that it either continues to function properly or that it gets retired, and then not just sit there unused. So I just need to know, what's your plan, Mr. Manager?
Well, it's something that I would have to work on, and I'm not prepared to present a full plan for how to handle it, but I'm happy to do that if that's what the board would like me to do.
Any other comments from board members? David?
Yeah, so is the site of this that we show, the map you showed, Nathan, was focused in on the track, so I couldn't tell what part of the property it was on, or have you selected a specific site, and is the Natural Resources Department okay with the exact site? So there's a few questions in there. Is the exact site chosen? Where exactly is it? Is it closer to Main Street and farther away? And is the town okay with that?
Yeah, David, yeah. It was, the site is, it was one of the two narrow sites that we looked at last summer as a possible dog park location.
Yes, I certainly know where the property is, John, but I assume that it does not fill the whole property there. And
that's correct.
I'm curious exactly where it is. And whether the site's been chosen closer to Main Street, further from Main Street, and is the Natural Resources Department okay with that?
So the site where the pump track will specifically be built will be on the narrow park side of the area. So it'll be situated closer to Quarry Road than to the conservation land. And it will be roughly in the middle of kind of north and south. It will be roughly in the middle. If you go too far towards Miracle Field, you run into some lower ground. If you go too far to the Main Street side, you start running into abutters and a driveway there. So it'll be roughly in the middle, in that direction.
Okay. And
add one additional
Mike?
comment there.
Mike?
Yes, sir.
Please. Do you have a comment?
I do, yes, just briefly. So Mr. Martin, in terms of the sighting on that, in the presentation that Nathan put together, there was one picture with the property. There was a second picture with a small oval section. That's the proposed location, the boundaries of it on the property, specifically set over towards the Quarry Road side to be closer to that. So I just want to clarify that is available in that document there. And then, Mr. Charter, just to respond, Mr. Mangiarotti, we haven't spoken about this, but we have done a lot of benchmarking of how other towns have managed the way that a pump track is kept up or retired. There are several models that have worked in Chelmsford, in Hingham, in Stratham, New Hampshire, and other places. We have a number of different ways that we would love to work with the town to make that work. We've not sort of worked through each piece of that just yet, but we are very confident that there's a lot of avenues that will minimize any cost to the town, and we're committed to making sure that that happens in a responsible manner.
Okay, any other comments? David?
Yeah, on the liability, where Nathan said that liability would be similar to the skate park. Well, what is the arrangement with the skate park? Is that a town maintained park on school property? I'm actually not aware of the exact arrangement there, and who would how the liability is done for the skate park. Does anybody here know?
John?
Well, most of the facilities that we maintain are listed under our Maya liability, property and liability program. I don't know specifically whether this is individually listed. The skate park. I'm sure that they would want it to be. I can look into that for you. And just so I can look into the insurance question, but as a follow-up, Natural Resources and the Rec Commission has voted to, the Rec Commission has voted to support this project, and the Natural Resources folks are comfortable with what's being proposed. There are details that I would like to talk more about with proponents. The parking is new to me, and some of the other components that I think we need to sort out. But just wanted to clarify that the staff has reviewed it and is supportive of it from what we know so far.
And John Benson, there are two people with their hands up as well.
Sure, please.
Steve Brown, did you want to make a comment?
Yeah, I would just like to say that as an Acton resident, can people hear me, first of all?
Yes.
As an Acton resident and member of the New England Mountain Bike Association for over 10 years now, and also as a former parent volunteer for the Argonauts, I'm very supportive of this. I've seen what riding bikes can do for people's health, mental well-being. I've seen what it can do for kids. It's a great way for kids who want to learn how to handle a bike, and it doesn't need to be an expensive mountain bike. It just needs to be a well-maintained bike with some knobs on the tires to hold on to the dirt, to really enjoy themselves, build confidence and whatnot. And I would love to see something like this in our town. That's all.
And John, there's one more.
Sure.
Parker and Hamilton Cole.
So I'm Parker Cole from the Argonauts. Me and my family have seen how it's been done down in Chelmsford with Russell Mills, and we very much support this. And we think that there's a whole lot of people that would be willing to take over if Nathan is no longer able to take care of it for a while.
Thank you. Jim.
I'm enthusiastic about this project. My initial response was to be very protective of the trails as a former Land Stewardship Committee member and a fan of trails. But I sat down with Nathan previously, and I'm very comfortable with the way that they've arranged the pump track to be at a distance from the yellow trail. It just seems like a very well thought out project. I think in terms of staff time, the only thing I can think that maybe wasn't mentioned was that the trash can there would need to get added to the route that the team takes to get trash from recreation areas to the transfer station. That should be very easy and straightforward. But just wanted to say it out loud. And I would love to see a recycling bin or two next to the trash can. There's usually a fair number of plastic bottles and things like that that can accumulate. It'd be nice to get them recycled rather than thrown out.
Okay, if there's no further comments, John, what would be the next steps required of the board and your office? What would you need from us tonight?
Just a vote of whether you endorse the project as presented and you would like me to work out the details, or if you want more information before doing so. Those are the two choices you have tonight.
Okay, so may we have a motion to endorse the project and have John come back? How much time would you need to pull your end together and get back to us? We have meetings on the 5th and 18th of October.
Yeah, that should probably do it, depending on how much, if they have plans that they can present. The parking, I think, is something that I want to learn more about, exactly what's being proposed. So
you could be back. We could take this up again on the 5th of October then, at our next meeting.
Okay.
Hi, this is David Kleinschmidt. I'd like to make a comment if I could.
Well, we're in the middle of a motion. If you have anything to add that we haven't?
Yeah, sorry. It's just to fill in maybe some information for John about the parking, for example. We did talk to Tom Tidman, and he did recommend the site across Quarry Road. That would be relatively straightforward to build some gravel parking there. So that was his recommendation. Just want to make sure that he got some professional advice about that. And also regarding supporting ongoing maintenance of the pump track. We are a large group of folks. We're building a Friends of the Acton Pump Track group that will support this from a long-term standpoint. So we're not planning on depending on the town for any maintenance whatsoever going forward. So just wanted to give John that further information. Thank you. Sorry to interrupt.
Okay, so Joan?
Yeah, I move to approve the concept.
Of the pump track at the Quarry roadside.
Yeah.
All right, is there a second?
Second.
Dean, is there any further discussion? Okay, then David, if you'd call the roll, please. Jim?
One last comment just to make sure. I'm comfortable taking this off the list of potential dog park sites, but I wanted to make sure that people were aware that this was one of the sites that we had that we were going to be discussing in October, and to be taking that off the list.
Yeah, the dog park committee endorsed this site as a pump track site in their last meeting. Okay, so David, would you call the roll, please?
Mr. Snyder Grant?
Aye.
Ms. Gardner?
Aye.
Mr. Charter?
Aye.
Mr. Benson?
Aye.
And I'll say aye, and so it's unanimous.
Nathan and Mike, very well done. We'll see you on October 5th.
We will. Thank you.
Okay. So our next item is an update on the COVID-19 response. John, please.
Yes, thank you. If I may, I'd like to take the next 2 or 3 items all at once in a single discussion, if you're comfortable with that.
Sure.
Okay, thanks. So let's see, sharing my screen. Can you see the presentation or the little one?
I see the presentation.
The big one? Okay. So that's not working. Sorry. Let me try that again. I do better at my home office with these things, I guess. So do you see the graph of the cases?
Nope. No. Still on the front page.
Oh, no.
There you go.
All right, thank you. So we are about 6 months into this. The number of active cases, which are current cases of people right now in town, dipped down to 0 over the weekend, and we're back to 1, which is good news relative to where we were in May. And we hope that continues. But I just wanted to, this is a chart that we update daily, and then we publish on our website every Monday night, or sometimes Tuesday morning. And so Heather is doing a great job in tracking these cases, and her team is doing a lot of, still doing a lot of contact tracing. Even though there's only 1 case, there's still a ton of work involved in tracking potential cases and a lot of different phone calls and interactions they have to do. So they're doing a terrific job with that. So the public health standpoint is, working very closely with the Board of Health. They're meeting tonight at the same time and going over a few important things, which we'll share with you after tonight. But I wanted to get to some of the financial impacts through the budget process leading up to the deferred town meeting. We made several presentations to the Selectmen and the Finance Committee about finances, and I just wanted to give the update of where we are right now. So as was reported by the chair at town meeting last week, our real estate collections are very strong, considering not a deterioration that we could point to, which is good news through the first quarter of the fiscal year. We hope that continues. The governor and our legislators have committed, and DLS has actually booked the state aid at level to last year, which is what we ultimately put in the ALG model. So that's relatively good news that they've made that commitment, and it's one less thing for us, one less variable for us to worry about as we work through this year. We are being cautious with spending in 21. spending freezes, and a spending freeze and a hiring freeze was in place in March. And I've been very careful not to stray from that, but we are doing some spending as needed to do things that we need to do in multiple departments and operations. There are some positions that we can't go any longer without filling. We've started to do that. We have a few DPW positions that are out looking for applications right now. So if you know anybody watching, please send them along and hope they'll apply. We're also doing some other hiring in targeted positions, and we'll continue to evaluate them on a case-by-case basis as we move forward. We're also doing a lot of great work. I think many people in the organization are seeking grant funds, and they're being successful in getting them. So it's really helping with taking pressure off the budget. We're working with the eligible CARES and FEMA expenses. We have about 750,000 expenses since the beginning of this situation that we're going to be putting forward, or already have put forward, for reimbursement to those programs. Just to give you a reminder, we were awarded just under 2.1 million for the CARES Act funding. Earlier this year, we submitted a request to the state for 190,000 for the FY20 expenses that we were able to document. We've since been awarded $50,000 for the fire department through a competitive grant. $30,000 was also awarded for PPE, and Cheryl and other staff did a great job seeking funding support for Board of Health. So there's a lot of resources that are coming in that we're using to help offset costs that we're incurring due to this pandemic. The expenses are, PPE, staffing, overtime. We've completely overhauled our office spaces and technology, and there's been a lot of investment in that. We're doing cleaning and in different ways. We've just installed these interesting nanotechnology on our doorknobs and our elevator buttons that stay clean somehow. So we're doing all kinds of things to try to limit the exposure and the transfer of germs and this virus. We've done a lot of retrofitting of office spaces. We held 2 very successful town meetings, which required a lot of extra expenses that we normally wouldn't incur. And we had the emergency rental assistance program, which the board just approved an additional $50,000 last meeting. And so the Regional Housing Authority and Laura Ducharme are working to disperse those assistance grants to residents in need. So tonight, as part of this update, there are a few things that I would ask the board to consider doing. One is to approve the health director, Cheryl Ball, as the municipal approving authority for remote learning enrichment programs. Schools started today in Acton Boxborough. I talked to the superintendent this afternoon, and he said everything went well. And according to all the plans that they made, I know they've been working very hard over the summer to plan for today. So I was pleased to hear that the first day was a success. So I appreciate his work. But as part of what's happening is with the education system is there are these remote learning centers that are being established during school hours for families who need to have their children do schoolwork outside of the home at either a facility set up for remote learning. And these need to be approved by a single entity in the town. And I'm asking that the board authorize me to appoint, or that the board appoint Cheryl to serve that role. So that's one thing, and I can give you some more details. The second thing is that our rec group is actually looking to use 50 Audubon as a remote learning site to provide a dozen or a few families the opportunity to have their children do remote learning from 50 Audubon to help them since they may have to work or for other reasons. We're looking at revising the fee structure for reserve parking. And I'm asking you to consider extending the farmers market to let them do a winter market near Thanksgiving. And I'm seeking your support and any feedback that you want to offer as we plan for reopening. So those are the 4 things. So to get to the first one, this remote learning, We have to do a site visit. We have to confirm compliance with all the state rules and provide approval of one or more programs to the Department of Early Education and Child Care. So it's an important responsibility that didn't exist until about 2 weeks ago. And we have heard from a handful of companies that want to offer this service, and we're required to approve and certify that. So that's the first ask, is if the board would consider appointing Cheryl for that. Would you want to do that now, or you want to go to the end?
So move.
Or is there any?
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, is there any discussion? Okay, then David, let's proceed with the vote.
Hey, Mr. Snyder Grant?
Aye.
Ms. Gardner?
Aye.
Mr. Charter?
Aye.
Mr. Benson?
Aye.
And I'll say aye, so that's unanimous.
Okay.
Thank you. That's helpful. And so along those lines, would you be comfortable also considering to vote to allow REC to use 50 Audubon as a remote learning center, subject to Cheryl's approval?
So move.
Second. Any discussion? All right, David, let's move ahead with the vote.
Mr. Snyder Grant?
Aye.
Ms. Gardner?
Aye.
Mr. Charter?
Aye.
Mr. Benson?
Aye.
And I also say aye, so that's unanimous as well.
Thank you. Okay, I appreciate that. So the next item is parking. So earlier this year in May, the board approved changing the pricing for the reserve parking since no one was using it. The board approved reducing it in half to what residents would need to pay to reserve their space. And since then, we thought people would start using it again. They're still not. The lots are still very empty. And so what we suggest to provide some relief to our residents and commuters is that you consider changing the monthly rate for those spots to $25 per month for the months July through December of this year, which will allow people to pay to reserve their space, but not pay the full freight, which could be up to $150 a month, depending on the location.
So move.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion?
Yeah, just a question. Is this revenue dedicated to some specific purpose that would be, I don't know, challenged or at risk by the reduction in income?
Yes, well, no, it would. I think we can survive with this reduction if that's what you're asking. The money from parking goes directly into the parking program and is used for maintenance and operations, and the costs for those aren't as much this year since they aren't as busy. And hopefully things will change after the first of the year.
Okay. So is there a motion?
Yes, there's a motion and a second.
So should I call the roll now?
Yes, please.
Mr. Snyder Grant?
Aye.
Ms. Gardner?
Aye.
Mr. Charter?
Aye.
Mr. Benson?
Aye.
And I also say aye, so that's unanimous.
Okay.
All right, thank you. So, as I mentioned, the schools started today. They have students back in the building. They have a smaller number, and they're in cohorts, but they are using those public facilities. So I wanted to start the conversation with the board about if you're hearing from your constituents or if you feel that we need to start having the public in the building soon. My instinct and my experience is that we've been handling it very well. We've been providing service through the phone, through email, and through window service, and meeting people in the parking lot. And there haven't been any complaints, but I still want to be cautious and make sure that the board provides with me any direction that you want to with regard to reopening. So along those lines, the Board of Health and the Selectmen both declared a state of emergency earlier this year and ordered that the public buildings would be closed. About a month and a half later, the board took a second vote to amend its order to align the public buildings closures with the Massachusetts governor's order, which basically allowed for a phased return to the office for the workforce. And so I think what I'm looking for tonight is for the board to consider directing me to start working on a plan to allowing the public back in the building as early as October on a limited basis in a way that we're comfortable with. We've been doing a lot of planning on that, and it's not something that we're ready to do right now. There are still things that we're not comfortable with, but we understand there will be a need as the weather gets colder to have people maybe come in the building when they hadn't had to for a while. We have taken steps that were required under the governor's plan. We did a Marianne Fleckner, our Director of Human Resources, Cheryl Ball, our Health Director, and Heather York put together a terrific and comprehensive training program for all employees, which is one of the requirements. We've done a lot of retrofitting. We've installed contact-free fixtures. We are working in cohorts when we're in the building to try to limit exposure to each other and to keep the numbers down, and that's something that we're continuing to work on. We're doing a regular schedule of spraying the common areas to try to reduce the potential for exposures. So those are the steps we've taken. And, you know, as we think about reopening, there's a lot of different things. We have, you know, the buildings, we have libraries, we have events and ribbon cuttings and all the things that we do as a town. We've been doing them virtually. We had a very solemn and appropriately put together 9/11 ceremony last week, but we weren't able to invite the public. That's an event that the public really cherish, being able to be there and observe that important day, and we weren't able to do that this year. So do we want to continue taking on a weekly basis and just defer to having not the public until further notice, or do you want us to start thinking about how to get the public back in these spaces? And we're planning for it, but we don't want to go too far in our planning until we know that there's a desire from the board for us to do so.
Would that be it?
That's so, yes.
Dean.
Yeah, I would certainly be in favor of having the town manager move ahead with some plans to start opening these offices on a limited basis. One that's not presented here, I don't think, but I think is worthwhile talking about is, because it's impacted me recently, is start to open up as far as being able to do sticker sales and that sort of thing at the transfer station.
Well, I got my sticker the other day.
All right. I wasn't so lucky. So
I smiled a lot.
That's the difference. So I think I'd be in favor of having the town manager move ahead and make some recommendations. I think another point that should be considered, it's a little early now, but start to think about what boards and committees can start to meet properly, where we've got enough space, which probably means everything's going to have to go up into the Faulkner room. But I think that we should start looking at opening that up again on a limited basis. And finally, just one question I got from a constituent is, any considerations about what's going to happen at Halloween, which it's not usually a big town hall holiday, but it's certainly coming at us pretty quick, and folks want to know your recommendations. Thanks.
Anyone else?
David. If that was a motion, if that was a motion, I seconded.
David.
Yeah, I agree that we need to, be able to accommodate people inside in the colder weather. People aren't going to be able to sign things, when it's 10 degrees outside. But I think we need to be a little cautious here. Also in the winter, the virus may transmit more easily, and so I think we need to be very cautious to protect the employees and everything. One of the things I was wondering, John, if we'd taken any, so a lot of the things you were talking about, guard against transmitting the virus by touch, but this virus doesn't actually transmit by touch, but it does transmit in stagnant air at a ferocious rate. And so I was wondering, are there HVAC improvements we need to public buildings, or HVAC additions we need for public buildings to increase the air exchange through heat exchangers or whatever?
Yes, that's not a consideration that I know that we've been looking at. Fortunately, we've been able to use windows a lot, but that's not going to be an option for much longer. So we'll need to look at ventilation, and that'll be certainly part of the planning and recommendations that I bring forward.
Further comments, Jim?
Yeah, I'm also in favor of moving ahead with the planning. In terms of the need, but also the challenge, to me, the trickiest space is the senior center, the human services building, because that's been so vital for the life of seniors that use it. And yet, the risk is also very high. So I'm just saying that's going to be a tricky one to do well, but I hope we don't give up on that one, because it's an important space socially.
John, were you thinking of starting with Town Hall as the first building to reopen?
Well, I guess that would be one of the ones that we were looking to start with on a limited basis. The libraries, I think there are some communities that allow the libraries open on certain restrictions, and that's something that I'd like to explore for later this winter as well. The Human Services building, the senior center is going to be a challenge, but there are other staff and programs that run out of there that we may be able to do sooner. So I'd like to look at that as well. But yes, Town Hall and the offices that run associated with Town Hall would be the first that we're just thinking about.
David, please.
Yeah, and I have one tangential question here, because it relates to, I don't know if we can use CARES Act funding for HVAC improvements here. I would suspect, it sounds to me like it's legit, but I also know that the school district is expecting to use some of the CARES Act monies from both towns. And I was wondering whether those requests have been made officially from the district to the town yet, or whether there's been informal discussions. I know that's not direct on this, but it's related, I think.
Yes, I've communicated with Superintendent Light regularly on that issue, and they do have funding that's dedicated specifically for school districts that they've been utilizing, but they do have a need to request of the town use of some CARES Act funds for technology and some other items that they're investing in. And that's something that we would be discussing this fall, most likely.
Further comments, questions? So can we, Jim?
Dean did ask about Halloween, and it's just sitting in my mind now. I'm curious if there's any thoughts.
So Halloween, we do more planning for Halloween every year than you would guess, as town hall folks and the police department. And that's something that we will do in October. We're not ready to do it yet. But yes, in my career, I've had to cancel Halloween twice. And I'm not looking for potentially doing it a third time. So I'm going to do everything I can to, no, I'm not going to, we'll recommend whatever's right. But there is a group of folks that are trying to put together some social distance Halloween special events for later in the fall that may serve as an alternative. So more to come on that.
Thank you.
Okay, any further comments? So how should we put this? Do we need an motion, John, or just a consensus? Please go forward with a thoughtful reopening plan.
I think a consensus is fine. I just want to make sure that there's a level of comfort with moving forward with planning, and I'm sensing that.
Yeah.
Dean, thumbs up? All right. Go for it. Thank you. Very good presentation. Our next item would be the diversity, equity, inclusion. Would you like to take a 5-minute break and we'll come back? You ready to go?
Ready to go.
All right. Okay, so this is item 9. And I'd like to proceed this way, that we discuss and vote on the 11 appointments, the 9 full members, the 2 associate members to the DEIC, and then take up the request from Racial Justice to Black Lives Matter to have either a black or brown individual named chair of the committee. We had received communications from Fran Arsenault, who is clerk of that group this weekend, and the appropriate forum to discuss it is at our meeting tonight. So, let's just go forward then with the discussion and a vote on David's appointments. My opening question to David would be, in our charge, we authorized 9 to 11 full members and up to 2 associate members. I believe you have put forth 9 full members and 2 associate members. Is there any reason why you didn't go to the full 11 when we had 31 applicants? David?
Yeah, it was just a mistake on my part. And so I will come back with a supplemental set of appointments, but this is enough to get the committee started.
Okay, would your sense be to move the 2 associate members to full members and we can vote on?
Well, I would like to talk with people first before I make
That's
that
fine,
change.
okay.
So I'd rather go with the way it's in the
That's fine.
agenda for now.
Okay. Okay.
And with this understanding, you'd be the chair, David?
John just said he'd like to discuss that second.
I mean, I would let's discuss that. No, our intention was that David is chair. There was just a request that was made from Racial Justice, Black Lives Matter to reconsider that approach and to name a black or brown member of the committee as chair. And I think we have an obligation to have a discussion on, on the issue, and
But
then we can.
would we appoint the chair, or would these members select a chair?
That would be for us to discuss tonight, whether we even want to approve that request. We don't have to. I'm just, granting the, the courtesy of having, that discussion. They'd have to convince me why we should do it some other way than what we've already agreed upon with David as the chair. I've read their materials, and let's hear, and I have some remarks that I prepared as to why we did it the way we did it, and unless there's some compelling reason to do it differently, I'd leave it as the way we have it. But let's just go ahead and let's fill the committee first, and David.
Well, to divide it the way you said here, John, I would move that we appoint the 9 members as full members and the 2 members as associate members as outlined in the agenda.
Okay.
You would be the 9th member?
Yes.
Sorry. Yes, I'm the 9th member. So the 8 members in the agenda plus the 2 associate members.
Okay. So and is there a second?
Second.
Okay. Is there any discussion, Gene?
Yeah, it might be a little premature to discuss this, but you raised the issue about the number of members on the committee. And based on the response we got back, if David wants to come back at a subsequent meeting and ask for authorization to get even more members on the committee, I'd be very amenable to that. And I think it's important that we be able to represent as many points of view as possible, and we have a broad cross section. So, we said 9 to 11 full members. I'd be happy to go beyond that if we think that we've got some good candidates, just so that we make sure that we're really inclusive here.
Jim?
I just wanted to say I really enjoyed reading through the applications from all 30 people, and it was just astonishing and moving to me how many people wanted to serve. It's just really exciting to me, and I guess I want to say that all those people who didn't happen to be on David's list are still remarkable people, as far as I can tell from reading the applications. And I hope that they will continue to find ways to be engaged in the work of the town, whether that's attending the meetings, because all these meetings will be open, or participating in other committees, or all the various ways that people contribute to the town. It was also remarkable after going through sort of some reminiscing with the VCC chair about the very small number of Black applicants for town committees over the last few decades, and just suddenly to see all these new names and faces come forward was just really remarkable and moving.
Yeah, I thought just the diversity on the of David's appointments was great. It was, of the 11, eight were women, 3 were men, 5 were Black, 1 Chinese, 2 Indian, 1 LBGDT, 1 Latino, and David is the 1 white person. 2 are current AB students, and 1 is an AB graduate now in college. So that's neat. And we can get it to 11, and if there's more, I guess you got to sort of be concerned of how large you want to make the committee, where it might become unwieldy.
I don't think that at this time I would go beyond what the charge said, unless the commission itself wanted to increase the size. But I will flesh it out to the full 11 with a supplemental couple of nominations.
Okay, but I would agree. I was just really taken by the 30 people, because I don't think any of them have served on town committees in the past. So that's a real opener. And to those who don't, there's lots of opportunities to get involved. If you could match a committee up with your interest, it's certainly worthwhile, and it really does expand yourself for oneself. So are there any further comments? And if not, then there's a motion to approve. And let me just read into the record the following names. And I'm sorry if I get the last names not quite pronounced right, but for full members, Charmaine Williams, Don Wang, McKenna Mayundi, Nasra Majeni, Nathan Cookson, Adiviz Soto, Sandra Hines, Sunanda Pepala, Diane Randolph, and Leela Rashmachandran. So, David, if you'd please call the roll.
Mr. Snyder Grant?
Aye.
Ms. Gardner?
Aye.
Mr. Charter?
Aye.
Mr. Benson?
Aye.
And I also say aye, so that's unanimous.
Okay, so Fran Arsenart's available. If perhaps she would open the conversation on her from her group. I think about 100 people signed a petition, one asking that a Black or brown individual be named chair of the committee, and that the committee or commission be permanent in nature and not sunset after 1 year as the charge provides. So, Fran?
Oh, hi there. Can you hear me?
Yes.
So I love all the things that I'm hearing. And one question that I did have, in that the current
committee as it is that you just voted on. I was wondering why the 2 associate members weren't moved up to full members with a voting position if there were only 9 full members.
I'll let David answer that.
Yeah.
So
David,
I will come back with a proposal. I just want to talk to people first.
Okay. And also, what is the job of an associate versus a full member?
David.
So an associate member, first, as far as participation in the committee, there's no difference, in terms of discussions and that kind of thing. The only difference, it comes to voting, that the associate members would only vote if there wasn't a full suite of full members at a meeting.
Right. Okay. Thank you.
Do you have anything further, Fran?
I do, in that I didn't know if you wanted to address the chair position.
Well, that's what what this discussion's about.
I feel strongly that it should be an opportunity for a Black or person of color to sit in the chair position for a committee such as a diversity committee. Does that make sense?
I understand the point, yeah.
I don't know if it's not the norm, but I feel like there are a lot of good candidates that do have. There is one candidate in particular that does this for her profession, so she would be very qualified.
David?
Well, first of all, I don't think that we would name the chair if we did this, right?
Right.
For every other committee, well, not for every other committee. There are other committees where the chair is a member of the board. But in most cases where they elect their own chair, they elect their own. We don't choose.
Right.
But excuse me, just a minute, please. Secondly, I understand the point that's being made. However, I don't really agree with it in this case. I think it's important to get the committee up and running quickly, and for someone to be familiar with the open meeting law, how town committees run, that kind of thing is very important. I think in this case it would be like dropping one of the nominees in the deep end. I would also like to not make changes to the charge at this point without involving the commission itself. And not taking. I think the people who are members here should get the primary consideration, and if they wanted to request changes to the charge. And finally, I think that having the member of the board be the chair is going to be very important for the results of this commission when it comes back to communicating to the board and making addressing whatever recommendations are made by the board.
Fran, anything further?
Are you saying, David, that in the future, once the commission gets started, that it's a possibility that another person could chair the committee if it's agreed upon by the commission?
David?
So if the commission voted to ask the board for changes to its charge, I think we would definitely consider that, right? Absolutely. Whether we would agree or not, it depends on the proposed changes, but that happens in other cases as well, right? Sometimes the composition of a committee or whatever is set one way, and it gets the committee requests changes to that.
Dean?
Yeah, I back David 100% on this. We carefully worked out the charge and the membership. It's a limited life of the committee. What might come out of this task force is a recommendation that we have a standing committee, and then we can deal with that at some later point. I think it's very important that we have a member of the board to chair for all the reasons that David has suggested. Better coordination with us. I think it elevates the visibility and the importance of this commission. So it's a non-starter to me that we change the charge, that we change the decision on who is supposed to be chair, or that we change the duration of the committee. Committee can come back. I'm fully expecting when they come back with their recommendations, they might want a permanent standing committee, and we can deal with that then. I'm also very uneasy about the whole aspect of selecting a certain racial group to serve in a certain capacity. And, I know this is unusual, but it's not anything that we've done before. And I'm not good with this at all. So I think we stick with the charge that we've got. And I've got full confidence in David's ability to chair.
Oh, sorry.
Jim?
So yeah, I'm very sympathetic to the notion of having this body be chaired by someone who's in the group that the commission is supposed to be like hearing from. But I also agree that this isn't the time, because of the order of the process, this isn't the right place or time to do it. So I had a couple suggestions. So one question for David is, I mean, one of the roles of the chair, and a very important and powerful role of the chair, is to set the agenda, to figure out what people are going to be called in to testify. And some of the larger boards, like even our board, has, so like typically, for example, David and Dean as chair and vice chair get together to talk about the agenda. I think it would be great, and in the spirit of what we're trying to accomplish here, for you, David, to call together, to find 3 or so, some group, some smallish sub-quorum group, to work with you on creating the agendas. That would allow, participation, of some Black and brown people on the committee and some of our first generation immigrants to participate at that level of the committee, and that might be a good starting point for achieving the goal of the letter that we've got. The other thought I have is, I think what you've said, David, as well, which is I would certainly be open if after the committee gets to know itself and each other and each other's skills and strengths, if you want to reorganize in such a way that chair is someone who is not you, I'm open to that, and I'm open to having the discussion come back to the board, to this board, if your committee thinks that makes sense.
Joan?
Yeah, wouldn't you have a vice chairman and a clerk, someone to take the minutes and stand in if you're sick or?
Yeah.
Well, one of the things we provided for in the charge that when we created it, when we said let's go beyond a chairman, we provided for a vice chair person that's elected by the commission.
Right.
We won't appoint the person; they will select the person. But just further, Fran, to your comments, and in putting this commission, bringing the idea forward, that as a board, when we had our goal setting workshop, this was the one goal, short term or long term, that got votes from all 5 members of the board. It was 2 proposals that David and I aligned proposals that we carpentered together to create the commission. And we wanted to take, it's a very serious matter. I mean, race is complex and sensitive, and we as a board chose to take responsibility for it, not just, hand it off to somebody else to do the job. And we're very much invested, in the success of the commission. And, when I asked David to chair it, I did so full well knowing his really lifelong commitment to race relations, and his professional work at at running meetings in the business world, which is no easy thing. And we took a broader view of the commission. If you look at the charge, it's the commission's tasks are targeted at increasing communication with underrepresented racial, ethnic, and religious groups. And it's to gather firsthand experiences in Acton from underrepresented racial, ethnic, and religious groups. And the 11 members of the commission, fill that, to a T. And I think we should all be very proud of that. And it's not just, it's for all groups. It certainly was driven by the events in Minnesota, but we are a very, diverse community, and we're addressing a whole range of people and groups and concerns in the community. And further to David's point, as a committee as a town committee or commission, it comes under the open meeting law, which to these 11 people who have never served on a town board, it is going to be a real eye-opening, experience. The open meeting law is about transparency and efficiency, but it really has nothing to do with efficiency. It's going to be a whole new way for people to operate. You can't have offline discussions of somebody comes up with an idea in an email and sends out an email and lets everybody comment on it. That's an open meeting law violation. And what's even worse is if two people sit down and have a discussion and say, well, we'll reach out further and bring in 3 more people each, that's another violation. So, Nina Pickering Cook, our town council, is going to do a real, crash tutorial session, on the open meeting law, because you could find yourself very quickly in violations with what's called serial communications. Because when you asked this weekend, could we have a Zoom meeting earlier today with the board? Well, that's a violation because it's got to be a duly posted public meeting, with proper notice. And one of the frustrating things we have is, you would like to take soundings among the member boards on a particular issue. Where do you think we're going? Well, you can't do that. Those are just open meeting law violations, and it could be incredibly frustrating. And one of the the great things is when the legislature passed this law, in fact 2010, they applied it to cities and towns and excluded themselves from it. So they don't have to comply with what we have to comply in our daily governance practices. And you've got to be abundantly careful because people from towns anywhere in the Commonwealth could be listening into a deliberation of this board or any other board and file open meeting law complaints, as we learned from the gentleman from Boxborough. And David is probably our most adept board member at really cautioning us about potential, open meeting violations. That as careful as I am, you've got to be careful. Like even in responding to your email of this weekend that David responded to and copied us, we've been advised by our town council and by our manager that his copying us in on the response to you is a potential violation. I don't think it is. But one thing I want to ask of you, and I'm very serious about this, is this is going to be involved in a lot of work that's going to be, scrutinized by our town by and large. And I really want to ask you is if you would get through to your group, they are not to target individuals on this commission because, all of their meetings will be open. And I don't want to see people, who make comments that don't square with somebody's view being called out on social media and targeted and criticized and subject to an ongoing social media dialogue. Because if there's one certain way to harm this committee, it's through social media targeting and attacking them and taking comments that they make out of context. I'm pretty thick-skinned, and that's happened to me a couple of times out of your group, and I didn't think it was particularly accurate, but that's the way it is. It's really important that those people be left free of that kind of attack if we're looking to get the work done that we want to get done. So I hope I have your understanding on that. Are there any other people who wish to comment?
There are 4 other people with their hands raised.
Sure, let's go.
Amy Christomurthy?
Hi, thank you so much for letting me comment. Thanks for everybody that is involved in this. And I just wanted to say that I think that you have established a really robust committee of 10, 11 people. And I think the most successful way that you could go forward with this is allow those members to elect their own chairperson instead of deciding on your own that you would appoint a chairperson. I mean, I think it's a community of diverse opinions that are really important, so that you should allow that kind of diverse conversation to go forward and elect who they choose to be their representative. I mean, just based on my few 6-7 years on school committee, I think it's important to allow the people that are out there and understanding that maybe they don't absolutely grasp all of the open law, meeting requirements, all of the ins and outs of being on a committee. But, listen, as a school committee member, you get up to date on that very quickly. And maybe we just allow that people who have volunteered their time and experience to, and give them the opportunity to ramp up, but allow them the opportunity to actually choose the person that they feel should, be their spokesperson.
Well, Amy, let me ask you this. When on the school committee, you've been around a while, when you go on a superintendent search committee, the school committee appoints one of their own to lead the search committee. When we had the Gates Douglas building project, it was a school committee member who was chairman.
Yes. No.
Okay.
So actually, on the I completely hear you. Right. So when you are choosing a person, superintendent, to lead the entire district, basically so school committee has 3 overarching kind of responsibilities: policy, the superintendent, and budget, right? So this is one of our overarching responsibilities. So absolutely, the school committee is going to be out there leading the search for the superintendent. If you are, I'm sorry, what was the other thing?
The school building committee. That was
So school building committee. Yes, we had so Mary Brolin, who is a former school committee member.
She was a school committee member when she was appointed, and then she left the committee. She didn't seek re-election.
She left the committee, and she could have very easily stepped down and said, I'm not on the school committee anymore. I'm going to step back. The issue is this, okay? If you establish a very important, honestly, I think DEI is an incredibly important committee, and you cannot limit the chairmanship to based on the elected 5 officials that you have in front of you. I mean, I think honestly, I think that the people that you have are great. I mean, I think all of you are extremely qualified and have a very diverse and important position, very important ideas, but you also have to understand that when you have taken 11 members of the community that are very different than your own personal experiences, then you need to allow those 11 people to choose who they want to represent them. I think it's totally different than building committee. Building committee is like, okay, well, like, where is the emotional involvement in building a new school building? You know, we're talking about emotional responses to diversity, equity, and inclusion. I just feel strongly that you should not appoint, but allow the individuals that have volunteered to choose who they want to represent them.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks.
All right, next we have there's
two more. Levinsky, you should be able to unmute yourself.
Hi everyone, this is Levinsky Jasmine. Before I speak, I want to be clear that I am in Bugsboro. So I don't want to, because I'm not an Acton resident, so I want to be clear if you guys will please allow me to speak.
John, is it okay if he speaks?
That's fine, sure, yeah.
All right.
Please go ahead.
Yeah, thank you. I want to thank you all for what you've been doing in the town for many years, keeping the town safe, and especially to, decide to have this commission in town. I believe it's a really great step to include other people in town, especially Black and brown people in the community. As a friend and Amy has have pointed out, we are a long way to go. So we have a long way to go. And then we begin this commission with the purpose of including Black and brown people in the community. I think they should be able to lead the commission. They said to lead the commission and be able to choose who they want to represent them. And I know it's hard as the board of selectmen or board members to just let everybody do what they want to do, because you are, managing everything in the town or leading everything to in the town in general. So this commission, in my understanding, is something that that is particularly for Black and brown people. And choosing one person, like from the start, as a white person to lead that commission is not really, it does not really look good. And as we are doing that for Black people, and we all know about white supremacy, it's like, I'm not saying this is what you intend to do, but this is the idea that we receive as Black and brown people in the community. Because it's like white people should, I'm sorry I said that this is not what you want to say, but that's what we receive. White people should be the leader. White people should be the one leading everything. When as a group, as a commission, where it is about Black and brown people, and you have one white person who is already selected to be the leader. I want you to consider that view. And please look at other diversity and inclusion group, or even in Massachusetts, or generally in the United States. You will see that they make the effort to let a black or brown people lead it. Now in Massachusetts and Acton, so we could just change that into appoint just a white person to do it. It's like sending in a different message that I'm sure you not intend to send to like the other people. And I'm sure you want us, black and brown people, to include, and especially this commission will not make decision on their own. You will be, they will make the research and everything, and they will send that to you, to the Board of Selectmen, to make the final decision. And I'm for the idea that David should be part of the commission, but and then he should be like he should be the liaison for the commission while he is a member, a full member of the commission, and let a person of color or a black person lead the commission. And I'm sure if you look in town, I'm sure there are other people in town who know government, meeting, how do they call that? Who know about like government laws, who know about open meeting law. Yeah, thank you. Who know about open meeting law. So it is not just one person. I can assure you, you will find at least two other people. And I'm not saying to just let them do it by themselves. And you can be with them, accompany them to do the work. And that will be a great message, I'm telling you, that Acton and Bugsville will send to all the other towns in the area. And as you know, I'm Levinsky. I'm part of the Racial Justice for Black Lives group. And I am working, as I said, what I am doing, or what Racial Justice for Black Lives is doing, is not against white people. We're not doing that in the community. We are united, everyone together. This is the idea. And sometimes to do that, there are things that most people will not agree with. But we do it, but we do it with respect and encouragement. And thank you. I hope that you will move to approve or somebody, or a black or a brown person as the chair of the commission. Thank you very much for giving me this opportunity to speak today.
Thank you, Mr. Jasmine.
And there's one more.
Sure.
Tara?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
It's Tara from West Acton, and I have a question for you. I agree with what Levinsky said and what Amy said and what Fran said. And I also understand that now you've got yourself to this point. Is it possible that somebody would move to take a vote of the selectmen to allow the committee to decide who can be chair? Thank you.
Okay, are there any further comments from the audience?
No more hands raised, John.
Okay, so from the board, Dean.
Yeah, I would move that we proceed with the charge and the membership and the chairmanship as described in the original charge.
Is there a second?
Second.
Second, David.
Yes.
Okay, is there any discussion on the motion? Jim?
Yeah. I think, as I said before, I'm comfortable with the charter proceeding the way it is for now. I do recognize that we got ourselves into this, entirely predictable situation, but it's a hard one to figure out how to work our way out of. And I agree that if the board is comfortable with the commission coming back at some point with request to change in the charter, I'm very open to that. And it would be great to know if my fellow board members were also open.
David?
Yeah, I would say two things. One, and also to your comment before, Jim. So first of all, I think the direction of who the commission hears from and that kind of thing, I would like that to be the direction to be set by the whole commission, right? The details of the agenda, my intention was to work with the vice chair to produce the agenda. Perhaps that can be broadened slightly. The logistics get a little difficult sometimes, but yeah, it would at least be with the vice chair. And secondly, the final thing is, I think what you just said, that happens on any number of committees, right? Where they get to a point where they need to change their charge and they make a request through their liaison to change their charge, and the board votes on it. And I think that can happen here as well. And in fact, like I said originally, I would not, if for no other reason, there's a handful of reasons which I stated earlier, if for no other reason, I don't think at this point we should change the charge without the commission, right? If the people want to change it, I'm open to bringing that back here and we can decide.
Okay, so with that, with David's comments, are there any further comments from board members? Okay, so we have Dean's motion, which has been seconded on the floor, to proceed as we have set forth in the charge. So if David would call the roll then.
Mr. Snyder-Grant?
Aye.
Ms. Gardner?
Aye.
Mr. Charter?
Aye.
Mr. Benson?
Aye.
And I also say aye, so that's unanimous.
Okay. Thank you all very much, and thank you for Fran and others for commenting and tonight. Thank you all. So review the funding proposal for the new sustainability director. I would just like a 5-minute break at this point, if that's okay. Thank you.
See you in 5.
See you in 5. Okay, so do we have everyone or just waiting for Jim?
There we go.
All right, we're all back. Okay, so the next item is number 10, review the funding proposal for the new sustainability director, John.
Thank you. I have a few slides to go over. This is a position that was part of the budget proposal that was approved by town meeting. In the FY21 budget, there is a capital article which includes some funding to support a temporary position to help pursue sustainability programs and initiatives. But it's clear to me, based on the workload that we have here and the demand for this type of program, that a temporary contracted position will be costly and it wouldn't adequately meet the needs for what I believe and what I've been directed to do as town manager. So I'm proposing that we hire a full-time person, which is something that I'd ask the board to consider voting in support of if you are supportive of it. And if you have any questions, I'd like to go through them. But just to give you a sense of some of the thinking, the Green Advisory Board is a very active group, and they've been working on, they did a carbon neutrality study, and they've done a lot of work and are prepared and excited for taking the next step in developing a climate action plan. They need more assistance. They're staffed by our facilities director, and we need a more dedicated resource to help all the work that they have outlined as a work program. Having a director focused on this is consistent with the sustainability policy approved by the board in December of 2018 and the various goals and responsibilities that that policy places on me, which I have not been able to meet due to the demands of other things that are happening here. It's consistent with goals established by the board every year. In the last 2 years, in 2019, there were 3 goals related to sustainability. This year, there are 4 related to sustainability, so it's clearly a high priority of this board, and all the work that I do, I need to focus on your priorities, and I feel additional assistance is needed to be able to do it appropriately. Also last week, the town voted a non-binding resolution, but with that vote and some of the discussion that we heard that night, it's clear that this isn't just a board directive, there's a lot of momentum in the community for this type of work, and I think a dedicated position will help us to better meet the needs of the community and the community engagement that we need to do to be able to do this right. So what this person would do this person would work with the Green Advisory Board and other civic groups to work on long-term goals to reduce greenhouse gas emissions. We were awarded a $35,000 grant at the end of June to help towards our work to develop a climate action plan. That would be, this is something that this position would take the lead on, and along with the Green Advisory Board, shepherd that project through and get a lot of community input, develop a plan that the board can review later, hopefully later this year. If they would also work on other grant programs that we pursue every year, such as the Green Community Grant. And this position would also publish an annual report to demonstrate and celebrate the progress that we make as an organization and as a community on sustainability. I think, you know, the school building and the fire station that we approved last year and several other things that this town and this community has voted to support really should be celebrated and should be, we should have someone that's really focused on making sure that all these things are all going in the right direction. And we have great civic engagement from multiple groups out there, but we need someone in town hall or in town offices to do it. And, you know, we have our public works team, our facilities team, my office. There's several people that work on it, but we need a dedicated source. So as I mentioned, there was funding available in this budget to help with a temporary position. I'm proposing that we reallocate that to make a permanent position. And the way that would look for this year, given that it's middle of September, And if the board is supportive of this and we move forward, it'll probably be the end of the year or late November before we have anybody on board. We would likely only need half a year's worth of funding. And I think that what's outlined here, 20,000 from the existing operating budget, 20,000 from the capital article that was approved on June 29th, 8,000 from the transfer station enterprise. One of the several job duties that this person would have would be to help the public works and the transfer station team with composting and other initiatives related to solid waste. And then there would be any additional funding that would be needed this year. I would propose that comes from the Energy Efficiency Fund, which is a fund that the Board of Selectmen control. The revenue that's entered into that fund is from the solar facility that we have at the landfill. That money is a revolving, reoccurring revenue source, and I would propose that we use just a minimum amount of that this year, if necessary, to support the rest of this position. So that's the proposed funding for the Sustainability Director position, and appreciate any comments or feedback that you have on this concept.
You advance the slide. I think some of what you just said was on a slide. It'd be great to be able to see it.
Sorry about that.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, so questions, comments? Jim?
This seems entirely in line with all the factors that you've talked about, John. I really appreciate your finding a way to make this happen.
Dean?
Yeah, I think it's a good idea. We've never really gotten serious about this for a while. When I was still on staff, I was trying to do some of this, working with the GAB, but we really need somebody that has specific training and is really focused on this. So I think it's worthwhile. The Energy Efficiency Fund, we've tapped into that in the past. For instance, when we upgraded all the street lights in town, we used a lot of the money from that fund. So it is a nice way to get some money that is sort of off budget. So I think it's a pretty good idea, and I'm not someone who would normally recommend that we start adding staff for a situation like this, but I think there's a good need for it.
Okay. Any further comments? So if there aren't any, David, would you proceed and call the roll?
Yes. Mr. Snyder Grant.
Aye.
Ms. Gardner.
Aye.
Mr. Charter.
Aye.
Mr. Benson.
Aye.
And I also say aye. Unanimous.
Okay. John, thank you very much.
Thank you.
I guess you're up again on item 12. Authorize the town manager to sign the intermunicipal agreement for the Regional Housing Services Office effective October 1, 2020 through June 30, 2021.
Yeah, so this is the regional service that we use to help with monitoring affordable housing and running lotteries and various other tasks and responsibilities related to affordable housing. We do this with several other communities, and it's something that's funded through CPA. Town meeting did approve the request for use of CPA funds, and I respectfully request your authorization to sign this renewal.
Move to approve.
Is there a second? Okay. Any discussion? David, proceed with the roll call.
Yeah. Mr. Snyder Grant.
Aye.
Ms. Gardner.
Aye.
Mr. Charter.
Aye.
Mr. Benson.
Aye.
And I also say aye.
Okay. Thank you. And on item 12 is discuss requests for proposals for the disposition of 3 School Street. John?
Another action taken by the recent annual town meeting was to authorize the Board of Selectmen to dispose of the former fire station that's located at 3 School Street. That was supported by the voters. Earlier in 2020, we did an RFP. Only 1 response was received. And I think at the town meeting, there was what we said we would go back out again and try again and see what if we had better response this time. In the packet, we provided the previously used RFP with a couple of things that we would recommend changing, but we did provide it to the board ahead of time with the idea that if you thought there were other things that we should modify to make this more in line with what you think should be done there, that this would be a time to do it. And what we'd like to do is reissue this within the next few weeks if there's support for doing so.
Okay. There were, from the memo, Selby had a couple of changes. And in an email that Dean sent to us, he had made a couple of suggestions. So do you plan to incorporate those into the revised document?
Absolutely. If that's, yeah, I just want to make sure that those suggestions are supported by the board. And if they are, we will put them in.
So we've seen Selby's, which talks about inserting the word affordable housing as a use of the property. And then Dean had certain changes that the building cannot be demolished, that exterior changes must be approved by the HDC, and the uses must comply with zoning. Was that it, Dean?
Yeah. And I would just, excuse me, sorry. I would just add that the RFP in its previous form was provided in the packet, the public-facing packet available to anyone that's interested.
Yeah, it was a length. It was about 40 pages.
No, I just, for the members of the public who may be wondering, it's there, and it's been there since the weekend if there was anyone interested in reviewing it.
Yeah. Okay, so are we, perhaps you don't have to take a vote. Are we all thumbs up on the revisions? Okay. Thank you, John. We'll go forward.
Okay, thank you.
So then item 13 is approving the revised option agreement with the Acton Housing Authority regarding 348, 364 Main Street.
Yeah, so the board approved this option agreement a few weeks ago, and there was just one oversight on my part. There was a clause in there that required that if they didn't execute their option by a date certain, that the purchase price would increase by an escalator factor. Housing Authority had been against that from the outset, and it was just an oversight on my part for leaving it in there. I wanted to ask the board if you'd be comfortable with us removing that paragraph and re-signing the option.
So we're all thumbs up on that.
Remove it.
Good.
Remove it, okay.
Would you be willing to vote? I'm sorry, I know it's late, but.
No, we've got more work to do, so
Don't move.
Second.
Second. All right, so David called the roll.
Sorry.
Mr. Snyder-Grant.
Aye.
Ms. Gardner.
Aye.
Mr. Charter.
Aye.
Mr. Benson.
Aye.
And I also say aye. So we're not going to soak the Housing Authority.
Okay, so these are the consent items. There are 5 items. 14, approve meeting minutes August 24 and September 3, 2020. 15, accept gift planning division for $2,871.42 from Seal Harbor towards the sidewalk fund as required in the Board of Appeals decision number 16-14, condition number 4.2.5. 16, accept gift planning division for $7,400 from Seal Harbor towards the sidewalk fund as required in the Board of Appeals decision number 20-02, condition number 3.3.1. Number 17, board to appoint Michelle Homburg, associate member, Council on Aging Board, term to expire June 30, 2023. 18, accept gift, Community Preservation Committee for $56,000 from the Acton Conservation Trust to be applied to the cost of acquiring the Piper lands.
Let's hold that one, please.
Okay, so do we have a motion to approve consent items 14 through 17 inclusive?
So move.
Is there a second? Then any discussion? Then David, please call the roll.
Mr. Snyder Grant,
Aye.
Ms. Gardner,
Aye.
Mr. Charter,
Aye.
Mr. Benson,
Aye.
and I also say aye, so that's unanimous.
So to item 18 on the accepting the community preservation gift for $56,000 from the Acton Conservation Trust to be applied towards the cost of acquiring the Piper Lane lands, Jim.
I was under the impression, because of email that went out to Acton Conservation Trust members, that the amount that they've raised has gone a little bit above that. So I didn't want to have us authorized to only accept 56,000 if we could get even more.
I guess we could come back for what the additional amount is.
Okay.
Because I guess it'll come in and checks over the next couple of weeks.
That makes sense.
I think that value does include the extra donations that came in like very late last week. So I'm pretty sure that that's a recent number.
Okay, great. No, I'm fine with this. If a few more dollars come in, we can just accept them at some future.
Move to approve.
Item 18. Is there a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? So David, if you please call the roll.
Mr. Snyder Grant,
Aye.
Ms. Gardner,
Aye.
Mr. Charter,
Aye.
Mr. Benson,
Aye.
and I also say aye. So that's accepted.
All right, so that completes our regular agenda. I'll entertain a motion to enter executive session to discuss the purchase, exchange, lease, or value of real property located at 25 Ledge Rock Way under open meeting law purpose 6, as an open meeting law may have a detrimental effect of the negotiating position of the Board of Selectmen.
So move.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay.
Okay. Before the roll call to enter executive session, let me declare that in the executive session, the board will discuss the purchase, exchange, lease, or the value of real property located at 25 Ledge Rock Way, specifically the acquisition or relocation of an easement under open meeting law purpose 6, as an open meeting law may have a detrimental effect of the negotiating position of the Board of Selectmen. David, would you please call the roll?
Yes, Mr. Snyder Grant,
Aye.
Ms. Gardner,
Aye.
Mr. Charter,
Aye.
Mr. Benson,
Aye.